campers, it's Friday. Hope everybody's doing well. I am Tom Connors. We have a stacked show today. We have a special guest with us. But first, I want to say hello to the boss man, Andre. How are you doing?
Greetings, everyone. I'm doing good. Been to the cinema and everything. Ready to discuss some Dungeons and Dragons and a whole host of other topics today with this awesome panel.
Yes, we have a very special guest joining us this morning. Back on the panel, James Eatok. How are you doing, good sir?
Oh, I'm the special guest. I was like, wait, well, which are the other? Okay, I'll take that.
Paul likes to think he is, but
Oh.
I know. I had to get him back for some other jabs from the past. So we're a little more even now.
Where we all have egos. Come on.
No, thank you for having me back on. It's always a blast to talk to you guys, and looking forward to a certain discussion about a certain recently released movie and the history of where it comes from, I guess.
James, very briefly, tell us about yourself for those that missed your previous appearance on Midnight's Edge.
Okay, my name is James Eatok. I always like to say I've been on the internet since 1995. I think that's almost like a qualifier these days of relevance. Like I've been online, I've been a presence, I've been talking about the history of animation since late 1995. I've spoke to some of the great writers of 1980s animation, those who are still with us, those who are no longer with us, and I've kind of made 1980s animation turned into like a bit of a career, which is weird, very niche, but it's been a career. It's provided like a roof over my head at times, and other times it hasn't. But my background is 80s cartoons, specifically this one, He-Man and the Master Universe and She-Ra Princess of Power. I've worked on those brands officially, for about 20-something years on and off. So everything from the 2002 cartoon to the comic books to DVDs.
I just want to highlight
channels.
that for a moment there, because there's many fans of the 2002 cartoon. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the reasons why it was as good as it was is because James Eatok consulted on it, letting the showrunners know exactly what to do, what not to do, character bios, everything like that. So if you want to know how it was so good, so authentic, well, that's courtesy of Mr. James Eatok.
I shall take that. Obviously, the writers of the show get a hell of a lot of credit, but it was nice to be like Mattel came to us in late 2001 and just said, you know the Film-ation stuff. Can you write an encyclopedia? So I co-wrote it with my like a guy who ran a website with at the time, Zadok Angel, who's now an agent in Hollywood. He really climbed the ladder. I'm still talking about He-Man and She-Ra. He's negotiating big, probably $100,000 contracts. So it was nice that Mattel approached us and wrote this lengthy encyclopedia, and writers like Dean Stefan and Larry DiTilio and Michael Reeves, who are both no longer with us now, worked on the series and made it a very, very good series that is sadly not talked about enough. People love the Film-ation show, people love this cartoon, that cartoon, but the 2002 show rarely gets any love, and it was actually a very, very good show, I thought.
So objectively, it's the best one. You also know quite a bit of Dungeons and Dragons, as we see behind you to the right there.
Bill Seikenditch. Yeah. I never know how to pronounce his surname. Like, I read his name in New Mutants back in the day. I was like, Bill Seikenditch? The artist, who did New Mutants?
Bill Sienkiewicz.
Oh, there we go. How do you pronounce it?
Sienkiewicz.
I've been saying it wrong for decades now.
That's okay.
Sienkiewicz. So, he did the illustrated Dungeons Dragons promotional piece. Because obviously the show was Marvel Productions, so obviously they had a bunch of, artists contributing to it on and off. But my background goes all the way back to Dungeons Dragons. It used to be televised over here every once in a while in the UK. We never had a decent structure of shows being on, especially when it came to cartoons. For example, like He-Man debuted in '83, and the newest episode, or the last new episode, was like 1988, 3 years after the show had already ended in America. So it was a very protracted way of showing cartoons. Dungeons Dragons kind of fell victim to that. It got really big in the 90s, weirdly. It was shown in the 80s, and then reruns in the 90s made it very popular. I remember going to school and people were like, "Oh, did you see Dungeons Dragons last night?" I was like, "Oh, hell yeah."
Well, that's how long the signal took to travel from the United States to the ocean.
Don't even get me started on Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. That's another curly
Yeah,
fish.
they took so long to get there. They changed the title.
they very much
And
did.
took out all the nunchucks.
Took out all the nunchucks and any reference to the word ninja. It was
that too. Yeah.
But even as a kid watching Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles, it was so bloody obvious. Like I had read a few of the comics. I hadn't really been a fan of them. I'd seen the Eastman and Laird comics, and I remember the cartoon coming out. I thought, oh, this is that one based on the comic book. And it was Hero Turtles, and I was like, it's still the same. And then, even as a kid, you pick up like there's definitely an edit there because that doesn't make sense. Like, where's Michelangelo gone from the fight? Like, why is he now on the floor? How did he end up there? Like, why do they keep cutting the music and the lyrics? And yeah, it was a hard watch. And then later in the 90s, randomly at a flea market, I found a Ninja Turtles cartoon tape, and it was like the holy grail. And I showed my friends, and we were like, "Oh my god, it's the actual Ninja Turtles cartoon!" It was like we should have got this from the beginning.
To your door and said,
"What's that?"
Police came to your door and
hello, what have you got in here, son?
Hello, mate.
Nothing.
We're here for the contraband.
We're here for the type. We hear that you're going up against the wall, cavity search.
He's a bad cop.
That's right.
I'm very glad that in Norway we actually got that straight from America. So we got the Ninja.
I'm kind of surprised you did, but yeah.
But there was a drawback because at this time we no longer got it from from the Sky Channel via satellite. Yeah. Instead, we got it through a Scandinavian channel, there was one commercial channel which was a cooperation between Sweden, Norway, and Denmark that joined forces to be able to afford stuff that they otherwise wouldn't be able to. And then, of course, they also decided, hey, let's dub things. Let's take all this stuff that kids are used to seeing in English, and let's dub it to Swedish and Danish, but not Norwegian, because Norwegian kids understand Swedish. They're like those pleb can deal with the Swedish translations. So I saw Turtles dubbed in Swedish. That did take away some of the joy as a Norwegian, but yeah,
I can imagine. You got to see all the fight scenes unedited, but there was the
we got the nunchucks. They were ninjas, but they spoke Swedish. So
it was ninjas.
Kind of like that, yeah.
Ninjas, mutant, ninja, turtle.
And Andre's just like, why are they all called Nina?
Yeah, Nina. Luftballons. What is this?
You got
Nina?
James over here watching. We're the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and yeah,
it was so bad. It was so bad.
Fun stuff. But we have a larger panel here today as well. We do. Of course, we have Mr. Paul Chato. How's it going, Paul?
I'm doing good. I've was scratching my head what to do for the next video. I think I got a good one, but you never know. I just do them for my own enjoyment. So this awesome. I'm actually what I'm doing is people have been asking. Hey, you're the former network executive. Like, what creative stuff have you done? Yeah, come on, tell us. So I'm actually going to redo 3 of the pitches I made in LA.
Oh, cool!
And pitch it the way I think I recall I pitched it in the room. So
that's on YouTube. You can make the pilots and stuff you couldn't make before, at least a version of them.
Well, I was working on my company, and I still, wrote stuff, and I still made pitches. But the pitch part, I knew nothing. I kind of suspected nothing would ever happen. But the excitement and the fear that it generated is I'm a fear generating person. I like it when I make myself scared. I will purposely make decisions that are bad, just to put the fear in me. And so it was fun. It was fun going down and being turned down. I didn't care. But so I'm going to redo those pitches.
Oh, very cool.
Very
and
cool.
And
so
Script
you're
Doctor
saying it was just like high school all over again.
Yeah,
I've heard his pitches. They're really fun.
Script Doctor can tell me whether I had pitched them correctly or not. So
I was talking
anyway, so that's what I'm doing,
part,
and that'll be done. I don't know when, but it's fun. It's a real fun, and thank you for having me on your panel. Great to see James again, and very, very exciting. And I bought Chuck's edition of Chuck Dixon's edition of Conan.
Yeah,
and I mentioned it on Twitter, and people just went nuts. They said, "It's great! You're gonna love it!"
So so I hope you will enjoy it. I look forward to discussing it with you when you finish reading. I need a copy of it myself. Then we can
It's coming in April.
then we can discuss some REH together after you get schooling.
I don't know what
That
that
would be
was.
Robert E. Howard, creator.
Oh yeah, Robert E.
And
Howard.
in my personal opinion, one of the greatest, most ahead of the time writers that ever lived. But that's my matter.
But
or
you can't fault Chuck for saying, "Yeah, it's really fun writing comics with large-breasted women and muscled men." Okay, I could just imagine.
Problematic.
I could just
Obviously, Howard
imagine.
had fun writing that too.
Yeah, I mean, I could just imagine going to Disney and making that pitch. Okay, so this new Marvel series features straight, large-breasted women and muscled straight men.
We're out.
And
There's a reason why Marvel canceled that
large-breasted
coming
men
only very
and
recently.
and muscle women.
And muscled women. Yes.
Yeah.
Large-breasted men and muscled women. That would get me in.
Also joining us today is, of course, Script Doctor, as you just heard.
Yes.
Hey, Script, how's it going?
It's going well. I'm really hoping for the weather to get more in the positives right now. It's supposed to be
terrible out
spring and it's still winter.
I'll send some rain your way.
Yeah, you must have.
And of course, Cultured Casino. How's it going?
Oh well, it's all right. I'm just fascinated. What is best in life, Andre? What is best in life?
Well,
Watching your 6-minute countdown. I watched
that
it.
is pretty decent here in life. What is not best in life is seeing the Dungeons and Dragons movie, and we will be getting into that momentarily. First, we got a lot of people watching, so greetings to, among many others, Commandant VHS, which is here, to Vift, which is also here. Brad DL is here. Olaf Farnes is here. Elizabeth Young is here. Sander Hammerstag is here, gradually getting over his birthday. Snail Messiah points out that Denmark often got the Swedish dub too, Andre, and it sucked. Yeah, well, at least you had a Danish dub. We never got a Norwegian dub. We were stuck with the Swedish all the time.
No, they got
I
stuck
would have
with the
preferred the
Swedish dub.
original.
No, he's saying that they got stuck with the Swedish dub.
Yeah, sometimes, but I think that must have been a mistake because they did have a Danish dub.
Oh.
But maybe sometimes they just play the wrong audio tape or something. So that would not surprise me. So yeah, good times seeing all of that stuff. We have Darth Maul watching here. Shrek PMC is here, pointing out that Midnight's Edge is getting some decent guests on.
Well, we try.
Yeah, we do try, and we love being able to attract such esteemed guests as we have on here.
We also have some super chats today, especially a big one here. Ladies and gentlemen, Rod Thunderheart. Gear Jammin' Wrestler is here this morning with a 55 Canadian super chat. Holy crap.
Wow.
Holy. Go ahead, Andre.
Yeah, bravo.
Yeah, and thank you, Rod. And he says, "Hail Midnight's Edge in the morning. Like to throw you a few bucks to promote See Through Love at Friesen Press. A Spanish teacher who can become invisible is shocked to find the new gym teacher is blind, but can see her by feeling the energy fields of everything and everyone." All right. Yeah, well, everyone check out See Through Love at Friesen Press. So yeah, that's some decent promotion right there. We also have a few other super chats we'll go through before we get into the main topics of today. We never leave a super chat behind, as we like to say. But if we accidentally do, like we did on Wednesday, we will be coming back for it. Tom, do you have that one easily available?
Oh, sure. You asked me for it. No.
I sent it to you.
You did send it to me like after 100 messages or before.
Yeah, well, fine. I'll find it. I have it right here.
I got it. Shirogami sends
Yes.
in $5 and says, when Disney right sizes the woke paying audience, it will be a vegan hot dog stand with 3 DEI employees. Well, you're right, except for one thing. Now they're moving on to DEG. So it'll be 3 DEG employees, but yes.
Yeah, still there's going to be some pretty heavy cuts. So yeah, that's the new vision for Iger going forward.
We're going to save the earth.
not gonna do the picks at any rate. So yeah.
And we got another big super chat from Ryan, who sends in 50 euros. Thank you so very much.
And Ryan says for 50 euros, Dungeons and Dragon movie looks like a farce in the vein of Terry Pratchett. I don't like that. If rumors are true and Joe Manganiello is serious about a Dragon Lace Chronicles adaptation series, I pray he takes it as seriously as Game of Thrones. And yeah, actually, let's dive right into it. We have more super chats. We are going to go through everyone in the end, but right now, while we have everyone on the panel, let's dive straight into some Dungeons and Dragons. And yes, Dungeons and Dragons. I thought I messed that title up because I was thinking of the Swedish version again. Sweden on my mind today. But anyway, yes, Dungeons and Dragons. Officially came out today. Cultured and myself, I know, have seen it. We will be getting into our spoiler-free thoughts on it before long here. But before that, not everyone wanted to see it. I mean, there's quite a few people that have it in for the corporate owners, Wizard of the Coast, and many also have issues with some of the early press surrounding the movie, like the director stating how much he enjoyed emasculating the male leads. We will get into all of that. But someone else who didn't want to see it is, of course, James Eatok. James, why did you not want to see it, considering that you're obviously a fan of the 80s animated series, which honestly everyone wanted to see instead? Can you just tell us very briefly about that animated series and why you didn't want to see this movie?
Well, I saw the trailer and I was like, not my cup of tea. I remember back in when did the other movie come out? Was that the one with Jeremy Irons? Was that 2000?
2001.
Yeah.
2001.
Yeah, 2001.
Thereabouts.
I remember when that came out, and even when you heard about the news about they're doing a Dungeons and Dragons movie, my friends and I were all like, "Oh, they're gonna do the cartoon." And reality, it's like, no, they're gonna take the property, they're gonna make their own version, which they did. And I don't remember much about that film. I think I saw it, but we were talking 20-some years ago. I saw the trailer for this one, and I like Chris Pine, but I was just like, I'm not really feeling this. It just felt like and not to sound like a grumpy old gentleman, but it just looks like a Marvel movie, and I'm growing sick and tired of that kind of. It's almost like we can't even take the story we're telling seriously. I don't know. I may be completely wrong. The film may be fantastic, although I saw one person say the film is great. It's mindless action and adventure, and it's like, oh, so you want that in your life? So I don't know. Maybe I'm coming at it with the wrong mindset, but yeah, I grew up with the animated series. I was never this might be saying something bad, but I was never a fan of the board game. I remember my friend was huge into Dungeons and Dragons, the role-playing game, and he tried to get me to play it, and I was just like, I don't get it. These 100-sided dice. I was like, what do you do with this? It was crazy, all these different things, and hit points, and it was, I had a good imagination, but I was like, I don't really like this. But the thing that caught my eye as a youngster with Dungeons and Dragons was the animated series. Produced by Marvel Productions. It was they took, I guess it was one of the first visual interpretations of Dungeons and Dragons. And they did such a good job that you had some of the great writers from back in the day. Michael Reeves, who only recently passed away. Paul Dini worked on the show. Oh my goodness, I'm forgetting a bunch, but there was a lot of great writers worked on the original Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, and they all took it seriously. I saw someone trying to compare the new film, saying, "Oh, it's not a parody. It's fun. It's supposed to be like not take itself too seriously, like the cartoon." It's like the cartoon took itself seriously. Just because it's a cartoon, don't think it's dumbed down. You had a bunch of. That's always my thing with 80s cartoons. People think, "Oh, it's an 80s."
James, yes, people do the same thing with He-Man all the time. I'm sure you know that. It's for kids, therefore it's dumbed down. And it's like, you do realize the people working on these shows were influenced by some of the great fantasy and sci-fi writers of the decades past. So you had your Straczynskis, the Tilios, again Michael Reeves, Paul Dini, all these great writers
that were using what they'd grew up reading to put it into practice and work on these cartoons. Yeah, they had, you know, I guess boxes to tick with regards to He-Man and Transformers and Dungeons and Dragons, but for the most part, I'd say 99% of the time they were trying to make a cartoon or a script that appealed to them. Why would they write down to children unless you're making a cartoon specifically for children, like very young kids? But Dungeons and Dragons took itself way seriously. It's so funny. When I was talking to someone recently about it, and I said, there's one episode that starts off with the kids nearly getting back home and the portal is closed. Like Venger stops them, blocks their path, and the kids are all despondent. There's this moment where it's just them all sitting with their backs to one another, and it's so like it sends chills up your spine watching it. And it's, you know, the Dungeons and Dragons animated series had a great voice cast. one of the best being Donnie Most from you know, Ralph Mal from Happy Days. It's like, how is he that good a voice actor? But yeah, it was such a, the show took itself very seriously, and it had those kind of 80s, you know, I guess I would say cliches of, you know, we don't want to kill the villain off because obviously we need to make more episodes. But I don't know, it's weird. So I'm always hoping for that Dungeons and Dragons animated series to be put on the big screen. Like I say, the animated series had a bunch of great people working on it that took it very seriously. And like one of the character designers was Bob Klein, who is like a legend in 1980s animation, worked on so much stuff that we grew up with. And it's funny, you know, someone said, oh, I remember seeing a screen capture. Someone sent me and said, oh, the kids from the cartoon show up in the new movie. And I was like, okay, right, okay, it's good. And I thought, are they just going to be killed as like a sight gag? Like, do you remember those?
You
remember
and
those
everybody else did, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, because also the shot was like a wide shot, and I thought, oh, they're gonna off them inside, and that's me being very cynical.
Like a big boulder land on them, or they
yeah, like big, like they're in an arena.
Dragon, yeah. What happens with them?
I just thought like they. Okay.
Yeah, but so this movie then, suffice to say, you weren't too interested in seeing it.
No, like I don't, yeah, like I say, I'm not like stuck in the past or anything, but it was just the case of, you see that animated series and the possibilities, what you can do with these characters like Earthlings in another realm, and you can play it for like gags every once in a while, but play it seriously. If you can never take the actual premise seriously, then you can't expect the audience to take any of the threats they encounter or anything seriously. And like I say, when I saw that image, I was like, oh, because for anybody watching, a few years ago, I hope I don't get it was either a Spanish country, it was somewhere in Europe.
It was Brazil.
It was Brazil. Was it Brazil? They made.
I'm pretty sure it was Brazil.
I think you're probably right. And they made an advert, a car advert, and they featured the characters from Dungeons and Dragons. And you think, a car advert featuring the characters from Dungeons and Dragons? Like, what? Okay, weird connection. But they did one of the most amazing jobs of bringing 80s cartoon character designs to the small screen. And it was just incredible, because you're like, well, are these designs of Dungeons and Dragons going to translate? This advert was some of the best casting you've ever seen. Granted, they may not be actors. I'm sure they probably are budding actors. But like, for example, like the guy they cast for Eric looked like Eric. It was just, it was one of the most amazing, like, there was this car. Yeah, this is the advert. It's so good. It's like, like they look like the characters. And yeah, the budget for this probably wasn't, you know, hundreds of millions or something like that. It was probably far cheaper. But they, you know, they've got the characters there, the designs and everything, and it's taking itself seriously. Like I say, like, you know, special effects are what they are, but it's still bloody good. And then you see the designs of the cameo they make in the movie, and it's just like, oh wow. And there's the clip where they show, in this new movie, they show them running around the maze, and you see the cars. It's just like, oh, you know, I know they're not the focal point of this story, but you think, like, if you're gonna, you know, do a callback to the 80s cartoon, at least do it with some kind of, you know, understanding of what these characters look like. Because they show a close-up of Bobby the Barbarian. Looks like a 50-year-old guy. Like, there's anything wrong with a 50-year-old guy, but he's supposed to be a child. You can make the excuse, well, maybe they've been there so long he's aged, and it's like, I don't quite buy that either. It's just, Dungeons and Dragons, it's, I don't know, maybe I'm just maybe I am just wanting to always see the animated version on the big screen because I see the potential it has.
Well, James,
But,
I remember
you know,
when the early 2000s one came out, that was what everybody's complaint was then was, why don't we just get the animated characters? And if I remember, the excuse then was, yeah, they had to pay for them if they wanted them because I believe it's Deke or whoever that owns them.
Oh, I mean,
yeah.
it was
It's the animate. Well, it's
Yeah.
like Marvel production, like their
Yeah.
animated wing, and I think they were taken over by Deke.
I was going to say, for a while, I know for a fact Disney owned Dungeons and Dragons because it was shown on Disney in like the late 90s, early noughties, like on one of the Disney
Well,
channels.
and that's probably because they took care of all of Marvel's animation. Yeah. But,
Yeah,
that would be why. But before we get into culture and my review of the movie, since we've actually seen it, I just want to hear from the rest of the panel here. Who here is interested in seeing the movie and who isn't, and if so, why? Mr. Chato, let's begin with you.
I'm actually interested in seeing the movie if it's kind of funny bad in kind of a Showgirls kind of way.
That's why I wanted to see it. That's why I was positive.
But I don't want to put up with. I mean, I'm trying to think. Wasn't going to go see Ant-Man because it was completely wrong for an Ant-Man. Because I like Ant-Man as a comic book character, and I like the first movie. So I thought, wow, Quantum Mania was going to be more than hate watch. That was just, I have better use of my time. But Dungeons and Dragons, because I like a lot of the actors in it, and poor Hugh Grant. I mean, he was replacing the other Brit from the 2001 Irons, who really did chew up the scenery, chew up the bad 3D background in the original movie. And I just felt bad for Hugh Grant, which was worth seeing the movie on its own. So,
yeah,
sounds like his career is behind him. I'd like to see him in something. But anyway, so yeah, I'm interested in watching it because it feels like such an anomaly.
Script, how about you? Is this a movie that you want to see or made a decision not to see?
No, I was interested in seeing it because I do have a number of friends that are into Dungeons and Dragons, the role-playing stuff, not so much the cartoon, and they're very excited to see it. And I think that has to be a consideration to something to take into consideration, because even though Dungeons and Dragons does have a cartoon itself, it's a property that's based off of the Gary Gygax books, and the cartoon itself does have a certain set of degrees of separations from the Gary Gygax stuff, is my understanding. So I'm curious to see what their take is on this, because it's already been heavily advertised that, yes, this is Dungeons and Dragons, but it is definitely not the cartoon. I mean, that's the same type of advertising method that they had with the one in the early 2000s. And I remember it kind of vividly because I have a number of friends who were colleagues of that director before I entered in the entertainment industry. So I got a couple of early sightings there because I got to meet like Justin Whalen and a couple of other character actors that were in there. Never met Jeremy Irons or the other Wayans kid that was in there, but
I believe it was Marlon.
Sure. But so I'm interested to see it. Gonna try and see if we can get tickets tonight with those guys and check it out and get their thoughts on it.
That would be fun to do it with the guys.
Yeah,
I want to see it just because Valkyrie is in it.
I don't think that's Valkyrie. That's Michelle Rodriguez. She's from the Fast and Furious franchise.
Oh, I thought it was Valkyrie.
No, it's just the same
chick
hair.
who plays the same tough chick in every movie.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was the same actress.
The same emotional range on screen.
Look the same. Uh-oh.
It's the actress who's made a career out of playing the character from Aliens, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
What's her name? Vasquez.
Michelle
yeah.
Rodriguez.
No, I know. I meant the character from Aliens. So like,
right. Oh, her.
Yeah, she's basically been mimicking her entire career, basically.
Yeah, she who was completely different in Terminator 2, like completely unrecognizable. Yeah.
Well, Vasquez was played by a good Jewish actress.
Yes, she was.
But again,
Tom, before we move on to the culture mind review, how about you? Is this something that you would be interested in seeing, or has the Wizards of the Coast turned you off too much?
I did want to see it. Six actually tried to help me find one of the early screenings, but it got sold out before I even got a chance to get to it.
No.
And we were looking all week, so it must have sold out pretty quick. So I'm interested to see how the box office plays out this weekend. Do I want to see it? Frankly, I was just going to go see it because I had a chance to maybe go see it early. At this point, considering how fast everything's coming to streaming, I don't rush anymore, especially the crap I have to deal with to go see it. Creed's already on video on demand. The movie's only been out for like 3 weeks. Yeah.
Bloody
So
hell.
I'm like, a good thing I didn't waste my time going to see that. Not that I would have anyway because of Sylvester Stallone not being in it. But anyhow, no, instead of going to see it last night, instead I watched All Quiet on the Western Front and I watched Tetris instead. So chances of me seeing this before it comes out on video on demand are very slim. And that being said, I'm hoping the people that did see it liked it.
Yeah. Culture, you did see it. Before we get your review, let's hear your perceptions. What were your expectations going in?
Actually, this
followed your experience.
Yeah, as the film, was advertised, and of course all the press coming out about it, my expectations were low. I think unfortunately my permanent position going into films, at least for now, is set the bar low so that you try to make it so it's not as disappointing as it likely will be. And so with that, I expected very little from this film. I expected every single trope that was being advertised as being delivered to be delivered, and I expected diverse casting that might be somewhat nonsensical, which it's just something that's going to be there. I expected a couple of plays on the tropes that they like to do with characters, such as bad dad and other things similar to that. I expected overly corny dialogue in inappropriate places, and what I expected was a marginal film that they spent too much money on. That's what I expected going in. So I think I said as much too.
All right.
So
Andre,
those were
what about
your
you?
expectations. Did you find that the movie delivered on those expectations? And what were your general impressions of the movie itself?
Here's a really cool thing. Normally my default to say something nice about a film was it was in focus. And in this case, what I would like to say is that the CGI was wonderful. Beyond my expectations.
Because Victoria Alonso wasn't there.
Exactly. And that's what my comparison is versus the MCU now, where they spend extraordinary amounts of money giving, just very blurry effects. There was only one visual effects element that pulled me out of the believability of something. I will tell you, what you've seen in the trailer with the owl bear, very impressive. Really visually that is really well done. All of the monster effects were beautiful. It's very, I said the same thing about the recent Shazam 2 film, right? They deliver much better on these monster effects in these films than MCU does now. So that's a.
Did you know who the SFX house was?
No, somebody asked me that the other day. I have no clue. But when I like you said, I mean that's an improvement over the other things that we've seen. And this film cost at least $50 million less than any MCU film. I mean, it was only $150 million budget. E1 is spending a lot of money on these things, trying to get somebody to acquire them. So they really wanted this film to be visually impressive. I found that my expectations were met as far as the casting. I've decided that I'm not looking for ghosts. I'm not finding ghosts. They're not ghosts. They actually are in there. So when it comes to the casting, it lived up to my expectations exactly. The role swapping, I will say, between men and women is very prevalent in this film.
We'll get back into that in a moment here, because I'm sure many will have questions about that particular aspect. Yeah. But general impression, like your brief verdict of the movie, worthwhile or not so much?
Yeah, I found this to be a mid-level film. It's a B movie with high-end effects. It is not. It's not nearly as enjoyable as Megan has been, or this year. It is slightly below what Shazam delivered. A lot of people will find this fun if you can, turn off your brain to things. But I put it right in the mid range. I gave it in if you're looking for a scale, I gave it a 4 of 10 or a 2 of 5. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think that your review is a very fair one. Unlike you, I looked at the trailer and I saw right away that, okay, this is going to be a dumb, fun movie. This is going to be a somewhat satirical take. I don't have like any strong affection to the Dungeons and Dragons brand outside of that 80s cartoons and the general aesthetics. I would have liked the movie to play more homage to those 80s beautiful painted aesthetics, similar to what we see behind James there. But still, I thought it looked like, okay, this looks like fun. It's obviously not going to be the movie I would have liked, but it could be fun nonetheless. So I was like excited for it. I was a little bit concerned with the comments from the directors about how much they enjoyed emasculating male leads. This whole Wizards of the Coasts thing not being like a gamer or card game player, whatever you would refer to a player of Dungeons and Dragons to be myself. That's like a name that is out there, and we've covered some of it here, but I don't really get it. So that doesn't really mean much to me. So I went in with the movie just expecting some dumb fun. And for a good half hour while watching it, I seriously contemplated just walking out. I never do that in movies. Like when I buy a ticket for a movie, I sit there throughout. This time I was like, do I really want to subject myself to this? Because the first half I thought was so incredibly bad, so distracting with the wokeness and the gender roles and everything that we'll get to here. But then at a certain point it picked up. And I thought that the writing was actually pretty clever. The only thing that I really disliked is that it needed one rewrite to remove the wokeness. And script, you could have fixed this movie in one rewrite. It would be so easy. You don't have to change anything about the structure of the story at all. It's just the surface level wokeness. That's the only thing that had to be removed, and it was so easily removable. But the presence of it, I agree, that takes this down from a 7 out of 10 to a 4 out of 10. So yeah, clever script. There are some funny moments, distracting modern dialogue, there's some distracting modern visuals, some like these characters, they don't fit in like a sword and sorcery setting at all, with the clothes and everything like that. And this like appearance of the 80s cartoon, oh my god, yeah, it would have been better if they hadn't.
So is the tone a little off kilter, kind of like the early 2000s movie too, where they just didn't quite take it too seriously, and there's a lot of modernisms kind of in the vernacular of sorts?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But let me just add real quick, Tom. There were a few moments where they did use what common parlance would have been within this world. It just, unfortunately, it got mixed in with current vernacular.
Yeah. Let's get into the question of the wokeness and the emasculating of the male leads. How did you find that culture? Was it distracting, or should we be big enough to tolerate it?
It was annoying. I wouldn't even say distracting. I'm easily. This is the other problem: is going into a film with as wide open a mind as you possibly can now is very difficult, and you immediately annoy me. I know you're annoying other elements of the audience when this happens. Michelle Rodriguez only plays one character. Michelle Rodriguez. She's done that forever. I mean, we've talked about that, and behind the scenes and in other places before.
Well, I just said here a few minutes ago she's done nothing but play Vasquez for the last
Yeah,
whatever,
exactly.
10, 15 years or whatever she's been acting.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, she's really good at it, but she does have like a series of 4 default expressions, and that's what you get. You get the same performance you get out of Brie Larson or the chick that plays Valkyrie or many other people in Hollywood now. It's like they have probably never experienced joy in their life, so but for her performance overall, I mean, all the actors did a fine job with what they were given. And you were right, Andre. The script there, some of the dialogue, some of the moments landed, but for the most part, it didn't feel like it felt within, like, around my table. Like if we're playing a game, of D&D, we're actively involved in role playing. It didn't feel like it lived within that world, even though there's some hardcore D&D references in it. I will say that. It was cool. With Neverwinter, the Underdark, which I always say the wrong thing, so I hopefully got it right there. But there was some interesting moments here. Some things were telegraphed. I mean, and they played out exactly like a DM trying to get you out of a jam. Right.
Yeah, I will also say the most telegraphed thing ever was the post-credit scene. I didn't even stay for the post-credit scene because I knew exactly what it was the moment it was foreshadowed in the movie. And a quick Google search told me that, yep, that was it. That's the most foreshadowed post-credit scene I have ever seen. So minus point for that.
Yeah, like I said, but your complaints are very similar to mine. And there wasn't a moment when the ladies were challenged in the film. And I, in the background, Andre, would you like to share with people what you felt about the gender stuff?
Yeah, sure. I can describe the gender stuff because it is prevalent and throughout the movie, but the focal point is Chris Pine's character and Michelle Rodriguez's character. That's where the focal point is, and I can sum it up really, really simple. Chris Pine's character is written in every detail as a woman. It's as if the character was female in the script, and excessively female so, and then it was just cast with Chris Pine. Whereas Michelle Rodriguez's character is written as a male character. So you'd think that the script would have like Chris Pine's character always having been a woman and Michelle Rodriguez's character always having been a man, and then they just flipped it in the casting and they didn't really change anything. Because it's like that extreme. Like, for instance, Chris Pine's character even sits and does knitting, while Michelle Rodriguez does literally all of the action at all times, like any barbarian muscle dude.
I know a lot of men who knit.
Okay, well, I'll say this. To add to what Andre's saying, it's not like Michelle Rodriguez is not believable at kicking people's booties. I mean,
she's completely believable.
Yeah, and her scenes again, given what they were
and also like she went for it, like grew out her armpit hair and everything. So yeah like she went for it.
yeah, and her backstory is entirely believable. Like I said, I mean, there was just a few elements if you would have pulled out of there and left the modernity outside of this film, I think you would have been more satisfied, because as people in the chat have pointed out, you could be a female warrior playing, in an RPG game as a dude. I mean, I often play female characters when I was playing a role playing game, but I just, and I'm saying that the character itself, it wouldn't really matter. It's just the stink of the modernity is on all of this. That's what it is, I think.
Yeah.
But I think the vast majority of the audience does not know when a male character is being shat on. I don't think it's something that they view as particularly unusual. We've seen it in commercials for decades now.
Right. And I think that's why the reception to films that don't have those things is overwhelmingly positive, and they perform very well at the box office, Paul. It's
being an example.
Yeah, when you shed the need to displace things like that, is when you're going to be overwhelmingly successful. And to be fair, could you have done fun with this film? Sure. There you go. Well done. Whose graphic is this?
I stole it.
Oh, this is beautiful.
Looks like it's Mel, whoever that is in the middle there. Mel or Mew, MEU, whoever made it. But I posted it regarding the whole Creed 3 being on video on demand already, and it made less than the original Creed did in 2015 with inflation. So I was like, maybe that's why that film didn't do as well as these two are doing.
Well, I mean, and Creed is a guy film.
Well, you took out the 55 plus male, and I think that maybe is part of it. Is the only men that are in movies anymore that are actual men are the old school action stars anymore. It seems like Keanu Reeves, Tom Cruise, Sylvester Stallone.
Well, historically, classic Hollywood held on to their men really for a really long time.
And
they really liked holding men, Paul.
Heroic. Double back again would have you know, Paul, that there may be males who knit, but not men.
Oh, hey. That to tell you,
unless it's Sylvester Stallone in Demolition Man, but he had an excuse because he was programmed to do it during his cryo sleep.
Hey, who are you calling a knitter? Here.
Like you said, people are going to find dumb fun in this film, but it's not going to run over.
You guys are actually giving it the worst review I've heard so far.
Well, I know I'm being honest because I've seen I've heard some very overly positive reviews from people after I have actually seen this film, and I'm actually a little stunned. You know, and again, I'm not out to not enjoy things. I tell you when I enjoy stuff. This is one of those times when, you know, I'm there, and I try to go with people, right? You know, family members, friends, whatever, so that I have like a reflection point, somebody to bounce stuff off of to see if they saw the same thing I did. You know, and these are people from all walks of life, political positions, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, I'm in a fortunate position where I still am friends with people I don't necessarily always agree with. So when I see something with them, I can trust that maybe if we're seeing the same thing, then I'm not imagining ghosts, which is something we, see as a real problem now. I mean, you see some.
Well, I said that in a video. I'm concerned about imagining ghosts.
Yeah, I mean, I started saying that a couple years ago, Paul. So we're on the same wavelength. It never made sense to me. I'm like, okay, so I can see modernity pretty easily. It's readily apparent. I think Andre can. I know Script can. I mean, many people, probably James.
I think more people can, which is why they're tanking at the box office if they have modernity in them.
But I strongly suspect, and this is the last thing I'll say because I kind of dominated the conversation for the last 10 minutes. But people are rejecting these things, but they don't know why. I think they are unaware of things, why they're happening, which is why I suggest that the reason that the action films like the graphic Tom brought up are so successful, and I think the audience is like, they're not completely clueless. They just don't quite understand what's been happening to their entertainment for the last 9 years specifically, and for a longer period of time, obviously, in advertisements and such. And I think it's very easy. It's very easy to take that instinct and then apply it to other things. Well, that looks like this other film I did not like. Well, yeah, because it's all chock full of the same stuff. So I think you're going to see that. And I think they knew up front that this film wasn't going to perform well financially. I do doubt that it'll get anywhere close to a profit. I think if the preview numbers that came out today are also indicative and include the advanced screenings that Tom was referring to that Amazon was doing in conjunction with some theaters, I think this film's in real trouble because it's under $6 million.
That's a good Rotten Tomatoes. Not that it is. That is the font of all our.
I can explain the good Rotten Tomatoes. The critics will love it because of the gender roles, because the gender roles have been completely flipped now. And I'm not saying one bad word about Michelle Rodriguez because she was awesome.
She was great.
She always is, and this is her best role, one of her best roles. She's fantastic. The one that really got the bad end of the stick here was Chris Pine. Him and every other male in the movie, but especially Chris Pine. So like those two were flipped, but
I'll tell you.
Keep Michelle Rodriguez, but make Chris Pine a little bit more of a man, and that would have solved everything.
I'll tell you my biggest objection to the trailer was the modern haircuts.
Right.
Yeah,
That's what I mean.
Well, here's a weird thing.
Is
Is that a weird thing? Is that a weird
No,
thing?
No,
not at all.
It stuck out to me like a sore thumb. You just came out of the salon.
James, looks like you had something you wanted to say about
sorry.
the haircuts and like those anachronisms. And then we're going to run through the super chats specific to Dungeons and Dragons before we move on to Disney and then Star Trek after that. But first, James, your comment on the haircuts and the trailers, because looks like that disrupted you as well.
Oh no! I appreciate it's that thing of like I saw the trailer. I don't want, obviously, I don't want you to say anything that will spoil this for people that are going to watch it. But are they humans role playing? Are they playing the game and this is their? So these are the characters of this world.
Actually, we have a super chat on that very topic. Amenthi,
yeah, that's what I thought.
for $10. Could this movie have been improved by being framed as characters portrayed at the table, playing through the scenario and in the game world? Basically, could this have been
Jumanji
improved by taking the Jumanji approach? Implication being they didn't take the Jumanji approach. These are characters in the world. Culture. Do you think the movie could have been improved by taking the Jumanji angle?
Yes, I've been nodding affirmatively to this question when I've seen it. I think they could have. There would have been a lot of great bounce back they could have played off of. Like arguments. You get into arguments at your table all the time, or passionate discussions, as you would probably like to say. Characterize.
Well, that's kind of where I said that I thought maybe that's where they were going with the humor, and I can understand why.
Yeah, that's in the trailer, the way they were talking. I thought, these are characters clearly in the current day playing a board game, and now we're seeing their characters on the screen. That's what I thought. Like, Chris Pine, he's this character. That's the way, one of the reasons I wasn't really too keen on watching this film was just the way you could see how Pine was going to be throughout the film. So it's no surprise what you guys are saying. But yeah, I honestly thought the way they were talking, it's like, this is clearly them playing the board game, and this is us seeing them. I cannot believe this is them of this world.
And it also, James, it also would have excused the dialogue choices made by the writers throughout the film, because you'd have been like, well, there's not going to be overly formal language at a gaming table, but sometimes there are. It depends how deep your group is. If you have role players that are truly invested in that character, you get the language that would be reflected in the game. But oftentimes people get a little loose, especially if they've had some adult beverages at their table, and the gameplay and the language changes. But that would have been an easier excuse to accept. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like there's like Andre said. I think I think script could have fixed this just with just one pass. Would have, and it wouldn't have to change almost anything in it. To be honest with you, the story was
every movie lately. It seems like
But that's the frustration, because I don't think that they should have gone the Jumanji route. I do like that they went for the take that this is part of a world in which they're inhabitants. What I didn't like is that they didn't take it seriously. You have all of these anachronisms that took Paul out even in the trailer. And I don't blame you for it, because it doesn't appear as real. So that's my issue. This movie would have been better if they had fixed the gender bending morality messaging, which could have been done in one pass of the script, gotten rid of the anachronisms, which would have been done during the filming. And you do those two things, and the rest of the movie would have been a 7 or even 8 out of 10. Because ain't nothing bad here.
I mean, Hugh Grant was the one that really took. I mean, wow! It looks like he just had a high street haircut. Yeah. Just came out of the salon. Like, what the hell? Even his clothes weren't that of the time. Anyways, So those kinds of small details take you out of it. I mean, and if you're going to do a person within a game thing, then I don't know if you guys are fans of anime, but Sword Art Online does a really good job of matching the what's happening in the real world with what's happening in the game world. But one more thing, in addition to what Culture was saying, when we were playing Dungeons and Dragons, the board game, part of the fun was people would talk in that fake Britishy kind of way, and then someone would throw in, well, mostly me because I was an asshole, and then you turn the corner and see, and what do you say? Cha. And suddenly you throw an anachronism at that moment, and then it's funny, and everyone's laughing because it's an easy juxtaposition laugh. And so, I would have thought that would have been a nice, if they were going to pull that Jumanji kind of thing off, then that's one thing you could try. But I agree with Andre. It's probably better to keep it within the universe.
Yeah, I'm very glad you brought that up, because that ties right in with this super chat from Callum Lyle, who says for $5 Australian, do you think there's a reason why fantasy movies with all British accents are taken seriously more than fantasy movies with American accents? Let's ask the one guy on the panel with a British accent.
Okay, I'm glad to answer this. Oh, you mean James, the other guy?
I honestly don't know. I mean, the thing, what we were just talking about, I find it really weird that in this day and age now, when people seem to write fantasy, they don't seem to have that fantasy language that we all used to enjoy with Conan and, He-Man and various other shows, where you felt that it was another world. As soon as a character uses a word like crap in a fantasy story, it's like, no, now you've pulled me out, because I know that's a word that I would hear, in polite speaking England. But it's really weird to me. And I think the reason, there's that flowery way, I guess, the British accent has, or I don't know, I don't want to kind of make us, put our country on a pedestal or anything. But I think that it's just the way that dialogue lends itself. If it's written right, if you're delivering proper, he says, fumbling his words, but proper dialogue where it sounds, of a time, of a mystical land, of a fantasy realm that we're not that closely associated with. I guess the British accent just kind of sounds pretty cool, though I don't know what Hugh Grant is doing. Like, I don't know what kind of dialogue he's delivering in this movie. Is he going, I don't know, what's up or anything like that. It's just, I want it to be, I still want it to be like fantasy based. I want to hear forsooths and stuff like that.
Did Rodriguez have a British accent?
No, he sounded like Michelle Rodriguez.
Okay.
Hugh Grant sounded like Hugh Grant. And
was he doing his Hugh Grant like, oh bloody hell, oh bloody, oh I'm here on the realm, oh Jesus, oh goodness.
Yes.
I swear I remember that
Hugh Grant
spell, but I can't remember the one word now for some reason. I don't know.
Anyone else want to give an answer to this question of why British accents are taken more seriously in fantasy than American?
Well, I would say, because of working in Hollywood, the Americans view the British accent as the most foreign accent that they're willing to put up with. That's why they're always Nazis. I'm just telling
always
you.
Villains.
Always villains. And we need a bunch of Nazis. We'll hire British actors to be Hitler. I mean, it's
I don't know about that part,
thing.
but I do know that we do enjoy our news read to us by British people.
Oh.
We take it more seriously.
Well, then you've got the BBC. Hello, this is the...
Hello, welcome to the World Service.
Yeah, that's the one time we usually take it more seriously is if it's read by a British person. And we're like, it's been studied, I guess, seriously.
Well, look, I mean, I oftentimes accuse things of being overly stilted and formal when they don't need to be in dialogue. True. However, if you're going to try to, present something as believable in a particular time period, it sounds more believable from a proper English accent, because that would have been the time period associated with it. I mean, I would imagine when most of the colonists settled in the U.S., and mind you, D&D is a game largely based on Eastern European stuff and lore and so on and so forth, much like Lord of the Rings and everything else. It sounds proper. It sounds like it's placed properly. It sounds like it's where its origin would lie.
Well, so, even within the context of the United States, most of the news readers are Midwest or Canadian.
Absent
neutral accents.
No. In fact, I'll take it one better. Any of the late night hosts have almost always exclusively come from the Midwest. Johnny Carson and many others. Yeah,
it's that neutral thing. You never get anybody on ABC News doing the midnight, doing the main 6 o'clock news who talks like this. No way.
Yeah.
That's why Dan Rather had to kill that accent.
That's right.
He did.
He did. He worked on killing that accent. He's a Texas boy.
Yeah. No, seriously.
But you know what's really funny with dialogue and things, and not to get into it too deeply, but after watching Rings of Power and the fake flowery dialogue that they created that they thought mimicked Jackson's Lord of the Rings, I actually went and rewatched the first movie, and there's almost no weird dialogue in it. There's no Shakespearean-ish stuff in it. It's just people, I'm doing terrible accents.
No, that was good.
You guys are just talking like this, but they're just talking about the stuff that's interesting to them, and there's actually no fake Shakespearean in it, which Rings of Power was
no
completely
tempest in anyone.
With.
There was no tempest. So there was no tempest in anyone.
No, there was no tempest in my vaginal area. No, there was nothing. And that I thought, wow, I guess these people never really watched the Jackson movies and imagined what the dialogue was like, but it's not. It's absolutely normal dialogue spoken with whatever accents they had in the Shire and every place else. So I thought that was because even to me, I thought, oh yeah, they're speaking special dialogue in Lord of the Rings. No, it's just regular everyday dialogue done,
I submit that is exactly the answer right there. The secret was in exactly what Peter Jackson did. Because if you go and rewatch it, I was about to say just this: the reason that British or Irish, for that matter, or accents associated with the area around Great Britain and Ireland and whatever you want to call it, the British Isles, basically, is because of, I think, associations that you would associate, like in a medieval setting, people would talk something like that. So when you then have, like, for instance, people who speak like more Northern English, almost Irish in the Shire, all they have to do is basically speak kind of like a generic Northern English / Irish / a little bit Scottish sounding thing, something that sounds like very down to earth working class, and avoid any kind of modern anachronisms, and you're home clear.
That's it.
Whereas for
exactly
like the villains, they come from a slightly higher social circle, so then you would also have that reflected in the speech. Like, you don't want to be up there with like King Charles or something like that. You don't want like that thing, but you want like the next higher up level, the kind of thing that we today associate with Shakespearean, not full on Shakespearean, because that's would be distracting, but just so you don't really think about it, just something you accept. That's why British works. Whereas the moment you hear an American accent, for Americans, that's something that they hear at home. You're taken out of the setting. For everyone else who listens to an undubbed version, you hear an American thing. That's something that you associate with the New World. Again, associations is key, because the irony is that modern day American sounds more similar to what they would have spoken in the British Isles during the Middle Ages than modern day English. It's strange, but it's a fact. And Shakespearean, if you were to watch a Shakespearean play during Shakespeare's age, they wouldn't sound like this glorious Shakespearean Patrick Stewart actors of today. They'd sound like drunken Irishmen, because that's how it was actually pronounced. So it's all about associations.
Did you know they did a show on that, Andre?
No, but I'm not surprised.
So a linguist, wanted to know if there was anyone around who spoke Shakespearean English of its time correctly. So he went around the UK and pulled out some Shakespearean play and had people read it in their dialect. And he found that the clipped vowels that they do on the stage in the UK was not the correct one. They were long vowels, but he couldn't quite find the right vowel length because Shakespeare is written in iambic pentameter, and it actually has a beat, and he was waiting to find the accent that matched the rhythm of the writing, and he found the exact accent on some island off the coast of New England.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean.
He pulled out
Yeah.
the play, got someone to read it, and bang! The moment you heard it, it was the right beat and rhythm. And it's a great show. I can't remember the name of it, but it was on PBS.
Again, you had
a long
the same
time
thing
ago.
with Spain, like the Spanish spoken in the Canary Islands and in certain places in South America is closer to the Spanish that was spoken in Spain in the Middle Ages than the modern day Spanish. But anyway, moving on.
We're
Audi
sorry,
says for $5.
moved. We got
I like
Speaking of
Michelle
accents,
Rodriguez, but her only great role was Girlfight. Most of her roles seem to echo Jeanette Goldstein's Vasquez in Aliens, like Tom said. Well, she goes to her strengths.
Hey, if you can make money on it, why not? If you're a smart actor and you don't have much range, then you just use what you got.
Yeah,
culture has to leave us. So
yeah, I was about to say, but culture. Thanks for sharing your views on Dungeons and Dragons.
You bet. Yeah, and like you said, I mean, and I'm sure you'll mirror it or similar, Andre. There was a good story here.
Absolutely.
There was just it needed more attention before it was put on screen.
So where would it be in the range of Black Adam?
Ooh, right in that range is bad. But again, it's not. Again, it's bad for different reasons than Black Adam was. And again, these are my opinions. I truly believe that there are many people that will enjoy this film, and if you do, great. You got, please don't misunderstand me. I like what you like, love what you love, but the minute you pull me out of a film more than a half a dozen times, I'm no longer engaged with it. And this film managed to do that, as Andre suggested, multiple times in the first 15, 20, 30 minutes of the film. And that's a shame. I mean, there was a lot of good story here. I'm not the script, like I said, it just needed another pass in concerns of characterization and dialogue. And to that end, I mean, there are a lot of things in here that worked. It did as an overall project. It didn't, and it would have been far better had somebody else, taken another shot at the script and just kind of fixed it up, like maybe doctored it a little. Like this guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Culture, thanks for joining us, everyone.
If I can read. Sorry. I was just going to say, if I can rejoin, I will. But absent that, I will be on my own show when the show ends. So hopefully you guys will check out Friday.
Au revoir, Culture.
Yeah. Have a wonderful day there, Paul, whatever you said. James, great pleasure to see you again. Script Doctor, you are a talented man. You need more work. And Tom and Andre, thank you for having me once again. Everybody have a great day. I'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you. And let's move on with these super chats before we move on to the next topic here. Jeff C says for $4.99, D&D was so-so. It would have been more funny if a Jason Momoa type made a cameo as a brutal barbarian who race happens to be a halfling, puppet race. Yeah, that would have been fun. You could have used some more stuff like that in there. And then Daikaiju Gamer says for $5, I wasn't put off about the emasculating of Chris Pine, mostly because bards tend to be horn dogs. Meanwhile, the other male characters look competent. They only look that way. And Chris Pine, he is the most sexless male ever seen on screen. Like, this is the safest dude, and if he ever does anything, he's going to get a consent printed in 3 copies. Like this, he's that safe, so you need not worry about that. Just a Kid from Brooklyn says for $10, since the final episode of the old Dungeons and Dragons cartoon was never produced, the films should have used that script. We've been waiting 40 years to see those kids get home. Yeah, James, this is true. It ended on the cliffhanger, didn't it? Or rather, it ended unconcluded.
It just ended. But I will say this: I like, as much as I'd love to, as much as I agree with that comic, it would still be a Dungeons and Dragons film trying to appeal to a mass audience. And as we're seeing with this one, maybe it's not going to do as well as everybody was hoping, or as well as the studio was hoping. Even though, like I've said and agree with this comment. Oh, I'd love to see the cartoon version of Dungeons and Dragons on the big screen. That wouldn't necessarily mean that the studio does, because the studio would probably see very little difference between their film they've got out now, and our kind of 1980s idealized version of what we'd like to see. But yeah, bringing the final script was called Requiem, written by Michael Reeves, and just saw like the kids finally escape the realm, but end on a cliffhanger itself of like, oh, that maybe they will stay, or maybe they have the chance to go home, and its villain is defeated, and everyone's kind of lives happily ever after. But that was written by Michael Reeves, who I said was like a prominent scriptwriter in the 1980s and 90s. Worked on Batman the Animated Series, Feet of Clay episode, Gargoyles, and a bunch of others. Just like, I was just going on a very brief tangent. The weirdest thing happened on my YouTube channel. I did this video where I was showcasing how Michael Reeves had written an episode of Dungeons and Dragons, and used a few bits of dialogue and a few references in a couple of episodes of The Real Ghostbusters, making that connection. I uploaded that Saturday before, was it last Saturday or the weekend before? Anyway, uploaded it and thought, and I showcased the other shows Michael Reeves had worked on, and then 2 days later, the news came out that Michael Reeves literally passed away on the Monday. I was like, oh my goodness, it was so like sad, because it's like I really, I met the man at San Diego Comic-Con years ago. We'd worked together at like a booth promoting a He-Man DVD. Real sweet guy, and like I say, a very prolific writer of 1980s cartoons. His work on the Real Ghostbusters is fantastic. He did an episode called The Collect Call of Cthulhu, which is one of those episodes that kind of transcends the series. But one of his best episodes of Dungeons and Dragons was the Dragon's Graveyard. So if anybody's ever not seen the cartoon, seek out the Dragon's Graveyard episode, because it is really very, very special, and a prime example of not writing down to kids, writing a TV show that's rather bloody good.
Yeah. All right, thanks for the tip.
I do gotta say though, to what James was saying there, he may be right, obviously, with the way the box office is going with this movie. But the one time I saw this movie get any sort of buzz was when that trailer dropped with the shot of the old characters.
Oh, really?
So I'm wondering if that may, I still wonder if they'd have been better off just doing that. Just having them.
Sure.
Because at this point, the response that got compared to the rest of it,
Yeah. The other bizarre thing is recently, is it Hasbro own Dungeons and Dragons?
Oh, Wizards of the Coast through
Wizards of the Coast are the ones that own it, but Hasbro has some kind of like.
I was going to say, I can't remember if they're owned by Hasbro or not.
There's some connection. The chat will know.
I was going to say, like, the only thing I was just going to bring up very briefly was, weirdly, in the last year or so, they've been, maybe the last couple of years, they've been putting out like lots of Dungeons and Dragons cartoon-related merchandise. So kind of to counteract my previous point of maybe there wouldn't be an audience for it, there clearly is, because they've released like little reaction figures. I think Super 7 did a bunch. There was these gorgeous statues, because Dungeons and Dragons was one of those cartoons of the 1980s that never had a toy line, because obviously it wasn't based on a toy. But now it has a toy line and a great deal of merchandise. So you think, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they could have gone for that and said, we're bringing this to the big screen. I mean, although I still say, if you're going to make a He-Man movie, I think that ship has long sailed. So 1980s cartoons, I think
I think they wasted that goodwill on the Motu Revelation series. You had a lot of people get hyped for that and then get very let down by it.
Yeah.
So I think the hype moment for He-Man has probably passed. You're probably right.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But what else we got here, Andre?
We did not get to read a super chat last on screen. Can you
go ahead and bring it up? I don't remember which one it was, honestly.
Okay, as long as you didn't unstar it, we'll find it again.
I don't think I did.
Yeah.
I haven't been unstarring until we've been reading them.
Why don't you look for the next one that we have here? Because
here we got Shirogami, who says D&D presents the opportunity to do culture impacting story. Their back catalog of novels is impressive, especially the Icewind Dale trilogy. There you
go.
Yeah. Did you see is this the one we missed from before, or is this the same one?
I think this. Yeah, I think this may have been the one. I don't recall.
Okay.
If not, let us know in the comments.
I'll double check.
Yeah. Thank you, Shirogami, for that. And then we have STR Red Wolf, who says for $5, online since 95. Same here. You haven't seen the World Wide Web until you've seen it in the original Netscape 1010A rendering. Oh, those were the days. I bet.
I still have a
Chato will
copy of
also-
Mosaic on my old OS 7 Mac.
Wow.
And
I still remember
yeah.
using the Archie search engine.
that's text-based.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, but that was also before TCP/IP.
I remember using Prodigy.
Yeah,
That was walled garden. That's like CompuServe.
Yeah, but it was even before all this like surfing the net
Yeah.
shit.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was a CompuServe member, and I had my leadership
I just remember it
roles
took
and-
forever to like connect.
Oh yeah, and then no
My
one else
cousin
in the
had it.
house could pick up the phone.
Yep. No, absolutely not.
The good old days. Yeah, Netscape. I mean, I have tried to run the old browser, and there's very few websites that will run in it now, unless it's still old university websites that are text based.
Yeah. And this is what we had up before. Yep. Whoops.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
oh yeah,
Andrew.
that was the one. Yeah, and then
Yep.
Anthony Durrell said for $5 Australian, even comics are edged out by the absolutely massive amount of good stories in Dungeons and Dragons history. Why such resistance to just adapting one of the classics?
Well, that's an
Script,
interesting.
Why do they do that? Why do they
That's
do
a
a completely
great
brand
comment.
new story when there are so many good ones to choose from already?
Because then they have to pay the writers to some degree of those
That's
original
true.
ones. They don't want to do that. It's already expensive enough to just adapt the property on its own. Then the other part too, and this is a fairly reasonable creative one, is that they don't. Hollywood likes to try, even though they don't often achieve it, but they like to try and do something new, and they don't like to retread the same things, or at least that's the talking point. Which means is that, oh, we have this very well known book or a series of books within this universe. We know the fans are probably going to see it. Do we really want to have the fans see the same story they're very, very familiar with? Or do we want to give them a brand new story, like a brand new story within this world that they could be excited for, that they're not going to guess the ending for, that they're not going to be able to spoil it without, the leaks being had and all that sort of malarkey that goes into those rooms.
Which really didn't work well for the Harry Potter movie series.
No, it did not. Absolutely.
It was a complete disaster. Following the books, knowing what the endings were. I cannot think of a worse.
Exactly. It's completely spoiled. All of the fact that they just kept on pushing through with those 8 movies.
Yeah.
And I got to imagine script, another part of it is they just kind of want to put their stamp on it too.
That's it. That's what I was going to say. I've
do,
seen
yeah.
a lot recently, especially with animated reboots and various, things with leaving their mark on it. It's like, so they can go, hey, look what I did. And it's like, yeah, well done. Like, it was there and then it vanished again. Whereas, you think the back catalogs of so many of these properties is just so wonderful. And
basically, they're getting excited over the equivalent of repainting a house.
Yeah.
Well, there's ego involved. And then there's directors want to put their stamp on movies, and showrunners want to put their stamp on TV shows. Directors are not a big deal in TV.
And I think another problem maybe, and I don't know if script agrees with this or not, is I think a lot of writers don't know how to adapt anything properly anymore. Like this is where we get a lot of stuff like member berries and stuff like that, because they don't quite understand what made it popular or why it was popular. They just remember people thought it was popular, so they just throw it in there randomly.
Well, you also have the controversy of the adaptation not actually being of the writer's hand. So, for instance, let's take a look at an adaptation that won an Academy Award, A Beautiful Mind. Akiva Goldsman adapted that. But if you've read the book and you've seen the movie, there's not a whole lot of real differences, at least from my recollection of it. So you have to ask yourself, well, what work did Akiva do? None, pretty much. And that's the other stigma that writers have, is that if they're going to adapt something, they want to be able to authentically say, yes, I actually wrote this. I didn't just copy the pages from the book and put them to screen. Because if you do, then the original writer will be like, well, what was the point of even hiring this other person to write the screenplay if they just literally lifted my work and put it on in a new format, right? Yeah. So you have that whole issue with regards to credits for film and the guild, the writing guild itself. So it's usually always of the more interest, the best interest of the person that's assigned to write the thing, to try and interpret it in a unique enough way that it's familiar to the franchise, but is indisputable that they actually wrote it.
So,
And-
you're saying Akiva did not pulled the dialogue out of A Beautiful Mind, or
Yeah, he ripped off that book. I mean, he was
okay.
It was an assignment job. He was requested to basically adapt this book into a movie, and he.
So you're saying he did a cut and paste job, basically?
Pretty much, yeah.
Which
And-
is fine. I mean, the movie was good.
It's
in some
fine, but the thing
cases
is
it
that
can work,
he's the
but-
one that's benefited most out of that, as opposed to the original writer of the book who did all
Right.
the work, right?
Well, what I'm talking about too is, and this is one that maybe Andre will appreciate, probably one of the best adapters of all time in history was John Milius, and he got pissed when the Academy nominated Apocalypse Now as best adapted screenplay because it was supposedly loosely based on Heart of Darkness, and he argued it was all his original work by the time he got done with it. So there was this huge kerfuffle.
Well, that's the other
about
side.
that.
That's the other
Yeah.
side of the coin.
That is. However, there is a lot of parallels to Heart of Darkness in Apocalypse Now.
Oh, I'm sure there
I can't
is,
claim
but-
it's really original, but it's definitely a very unique take on the story of Heart of Darkness.
But that's where I'm saying is like Milius was a guy who could adapt the hell out of something, right? I mean, he's responsible for a lot of the shit that's in Jaws. Like Spielberg has time and time again said it was John Milius who broke the back of the script and fixed it, basically, and he didn't even get any real credit for it at the end of the day. And so he always makes sure he tells people that. But like he's one of those guys, and they're great. Like another one would be, I suppose, like Nicholas Meyer and some others we talked about before who are able to do it. But it seems like kids nowadays just don't understand what goes into an adaptation either. Exactly.
Yeah, and it, for instance, my favorite punching bag is She-Hulk. I don't understand why they didn't just take that series of comics that were about She-Hulk attorney at law and do them.
Well, because
Yeah.
there you had a Rick and Morty writer with an
Correct.
ego. So that was the answer for that.
The
Yeah.
least they could have done is
Uh,
rip off some Night Court episodes, but yeah.
Yeah, but on the topic of this, again, this ties right back to what Shirogami
sorry.
was saying. I don't recall if we read it out loud, but he also points out
Yes, we did.
that the D&D presents the opportunity to do culture-impacting story. Their back catalog of novels is impressive, especially the Icewind Dale trilogy. That would be an example. And on that TV ad we showed, Callum Lyle says for $5 Australian, that TV ad was made because of that Critical Role series. An anime adaptation of the Drist books would be amazing, but not funded by Netflix. And yeah, if you say so.
Yeah, you don't want anybody
And
from Netflix
Chris
doing anything like that.
Catman says for $10, I grew up on the old D&D by Guy Gax, and I loved the animated cartoon. Thanks for showing me the I had never seen it. The commercial. That is what I want. This movie, yeah, pass. Saw your last Star Trek video. Rest in peace. Oh, you just wait. We have another.
We
Star
have
Trek
more
update
news coming.
here. Yeah, so just stay tuned. Star Trek is coming later here, and you don't want.
Let's just say we're hearing that we're going to get a very familiar announcement on April 5th.
Yeah, and it's not going to be the one you want at all. Then
We need to get into the Star Trek before I go at 2-ish then, because I want to hear
Yes,
this.
We'll get there.
Okay,
So let's get through these. We got
jump straight into
Grimzilla.
Star Trek next then.
Yes, Grimzilla has been a member for a year. Happy birthday. Says reject D&D, embrace Goblin Slayer. Second season releasing this year. So there's an alternative. And did we have any more D&D ones here? I just want to make
Yes,
sure.
we do. We have a couple of more, just a couple of more, and then
this the
we'll
one
get
we just
into
read?
Star Trek.
Is this the one
Yeah,
we just read?
that.
I just
That
want
one
to make
is
sure
the
we
one we
unstar
just,
the ones we
got.
read because I'm being 6 today. So
Yeah, but yeah, no, we got this one.
Okay.
The next one is Marksman of 117B, who says, "Could you save money by watching the fan D&D movie on
Oh.
YouTube, The Gamer, for free instead? Much better film and worth the 1 hour time investment." Yeah, probably that
Okay.
might be a better usage of your time. John Thomas says for $10, the only good D&D adaptation was the 70s animation with Tom Bosley, Mr. Cunningham, voicing the wizard. An engineer gets pulled into the world and turned into a dragon. I did not even know that something like that existed. But
So,
I
so
have
This is
is,
the first I heard
is
of that
John
one.
Thomas, is this a fake name?
I am willing to go out on a limb,
Perhaps.
Paul,
He
and
will
say
have
it
to
is.
let us
Yes,
know.
Okay,
Yeah.
because that would be a very British reference.
Yeah.
it is.
And then Master Clockwork says for $2, I want more Lord of the Rings in my Dungeons and Dragons and less critical roles. So probably critical race theory he refers to right there. And then Jeff C, and we're almost by the end of Dungeons and Dragons now. There's a fan-made D&D episode on how the kids came home, based on the script from the original series writers. Look up Dungeons and Dragons Requiem on YouTube. Oh, wow. That's very interesting. And then we had another super chat that I can't get up on screen anymore because it came before we could get it in here, but I do have it behind the scenes. And that's from HyperGuyver2, who said before we started, I can assure you TTRPG fans have not embraced the D&D movie. The normies and full fans that have embraced it. The real fans have moved. And yeah, that could be. Let's move straight along from there into 2 other Star Trek super chats.
Well, before we do, Raven R corrects you. Critical Role is actually a group of voice actors that stream D&D campaign.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, thanks for that update. But yeah, let's do the 2 Star Trek super chats that I cannot get up on screen, but I have them behind the scenes here, and they are both from Rip Star Trek, aka Alex Kurtzman, Suck Something Fierce. And he says first, for 70 South American runs, so long as Kurtzman Trek is canonical, I'm completely out. I'm currently watching 2 of my favorite Trek shows, and I've lost interest in finishing. They have destroyed my love of classic Trek as well. You know what? I empathize with that. That happened to me as well. Like, until Picard season 3, I couldn't even watch classic Trek. It was that bad. And then he continues for another 35 South African rounds. Paramount has had many chances and reasons to liberate us from Bad Robot and Secret Hideout. Once again, they always make the wrong and unprofitable choice. So yes, speaking of Star Trek...
I mean, honestly, I would say that if Picard would have done better, they might have gotten rid of him. I think at this point, it's kind of like a devil you know situation. But we'll have to wait and see how this rolls.
Yeah, but just to do a very brief recap on this week's events of Star Trek. On Monday, we published a video where we said that we had heard murmurs that the Secret Hideout contract had been renewed and announcements could be expected very quickly. The day after we put that video out, after months of complete silence, we learned that both Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks had gotten new seasons. 2 days after that, we learned that a new series was coming, Star Trek Starfleet Academy. And this is a spin-off of the Discovery series coming straight from Alex Kurtzman himself, taking place in the Discovery timeline. And now, Tom, you and I, we have independently of each other, from different sources, heard of something else that will be announced in the near future, probably on April 5th. This thing is going to be announced. But we have heard that this is a done deal. Tom, what have we heard is coming next from the world of Star Trek?
Well, it turns out they may have finally been able to wrangle now Oscar winner Michelle Yeoh. And you said it yourself, and I've heard it from 2 separate people, that we are getting that stupid Section 31 show finally. That's the big announcement that's coming for April 5th.
So yeah, Star Trek Section 31, you heard it on Midnight's Edge first. It is coming. The series that no one wanted. I mean, no one wants this. Well, with Alex Kurtzman and 10
Alex
other
Kurtzman
people,
and Michelle Yeoh is about it, yeah.
Yeah, they're about it. But beyond that, in the fan base, no one wants this. I mean, even fewer people want this than wanted the Starfleet.
We joke constantly how Section 31 is the worst kept secret in Starfleet now. Because everybody knows about it. Everybody knows who's an agent. Like,
So Michelle Yeoh is no longer the evil Emperor Kang from
no.
Discovery and is now
Now
back
she's
She is now the evil emperor of Section 31.
yep.
Like the HR department head.
Yeah. And this is probably going to be a relatively limited series. They're still going to split it into 2 seasons, so they can say, multiple seasons.
Yeah.
But they're going to do one production run, most likely. And it's going to be the same number of episodes that it would be like in one regular season. They're just going to split it up in 2 for, marketing and contractual purpose and stuff to extend it as much as possible. But content-wise, it's pretty much going to be 1 season because Michelle Yeoh is very much an in-demand actress right now.
Yeah.
But and this actually may have been a big part of the reason why Alex Kurtzman and Secret Hideout were able to get the extension, because they had not a contractual commitment per se, but they had like a contractual lead on Michelle Yeoh, now an Oscar winner, and he goes to he goes to Paramount with that, saying, "Hey, I have like an agreement. If we go right now, we can film this at that time and release this then. What say you? But then you have to renew me."
That's kind of what I
Apparently-
was told, is that was the case because she's also an executive producer on the show.
Yeah, apparently that is instrumental in the Secret Hideout Star Trek gig, reportedly, this is not confirmed, but reportedly getting re-upped.
Well, apart from the fact that I got excited by Disco when Michelle was in the very first episode and then shocked when they killed her off at the end. And then they brought her back as I said Kang, but Emperor Ming. I thought I don't know if anyone else thought of it. This is like from Buck Rogers. They got except it's instead of a white guy dressed up as an Oriental, they actually got Michelle Yeoh. And I thought this felt very like reminiscent of a very racist Emperor Ming. And now she's back again in Section 31. They just can't get enough of her. I think she might have worn out her welcome. I don't think anyone's going to watch this just because of her.
I mean,
I don't
Michelle
think
Yeoh's a
anyone's gonna
hot
watch
ticket
it.
right now.
There's
I
hot
think-
and there's hot. I mean,
Yeah, I don't think she's going to draw anybody to this, though. I think
no,
is more
that's
so
my
the
point.
case.
I wouldn't
Yeah,
watch it
yeah.
because of her. And I loved her in Something Everywhere,
'Cause her-
Everything,
yeah.
wherever it was, somewhere, everywhere.
Well, her
whatever the name-
character is horrible in the show. Let's be real. It is
Oh,
one
the
of
Empress
the worst
Ming.
characters on there. Yeah.
Yes.
And
Well, no, it's not the same character from
not the
Disco,
first
is it?
episode. Yeah, no, it is. That's where they sent her off. I don't know if you remember, or you never probably watched it.
No, I
But yeah,
watched a bit of her as
They
Empress
set
Ming,
it up
and I
that
went,
yes, it's the alternate universe character that is running Section 31.
oh, okay.
Because they have to fix her first so they could keep her in this universe. If I remember right, Andre.
Something like that. I don't remember. I
I've
remember
tried
like
to
the
purge Discovery
original
from my
version-
memory.
The
Yeah,
original version was eaten by Klingons, and then they brought over from the mirrored universe because the only competent people in Star Trek Discovery are the ones from the mirrored universe. Were it not for those, they would have lost the war to the Klingons 100 times over.
Pretty much. And then Michelle Yeoh went to the 32nd century where
Mhm.
Starfleet Academy is going to take place. And then through the Guardian of Forever, who was completely rewritten into some sort of pale comparison to a Doctor Who, sent Michelle Yeoh back to the 23rd century,
That's right.
but not necessarily the mirror universe. So that's how you get
Because they
her
had to
back
fix
in.
her so she could stay. That's all I remember.
They had to fix her to get her off the series because
That's
they
right.
wanted to do Section 31 and they wanted to do it in
Yes.
the 23rd century because there's no reason for them to do it in the 32nd century since there's no real Starfleet. Like that's
Yeah.
basically what they did.
Yeah. Coastline Kid speaks for pretty much everyone
Yeah.
who isn't a professional writer here saying, lol, who remembers this crap?
Well, Script remembers it better than me.
Wow. I'm impressed,
And,
Script.
I mean, I have a piss poor memory anyway, but
No.
well, there was actually more to this because one of the individuals who gave us this information gave us other information before the announcement for Starfleet Academy. Now, I know that doesn't do much for us here because we didn't do the video until after that fact, but there was more to that. This also had the original first time we heard about the Section 31 miniseries again Well, now it's going from a miniseries now to an actual series, is what I was told. And also they added in there another bit that we've been hearing some rumblings about. And that is a new movie for 2026. Now, Andre, I don't know if you heard any more about this, but what basically I keep hearing is that Kurtzman's trying to weasel his way into this freaking movie deal too. Probably to help out his buddy JJ, for all we know.
Yeah, because here's like the thing that the movies, since the remerger, they have reverted to secret hideout. So if he is just able to get like the green light on that, he can bring in his friend and mentor J.J. Abrams and Bad Robot, and the gang's all back together again.
I'm not 100% sure he's out of the picture. I know you and a few others have said that, but otherwise, why does he keep trying to get a Star Trek 4 off the ground unless he does have some?
Well, he can pitch it, but they have no legal obligation to actually make it. But if Kurtzman is able to sway it, that hey, Bad Robot is back in the gig again.
Yeah. So anyhow, that's the rumors. So we'll have to see how April 5th shakes out. But
and that's supposed to be First Contact Day, I believe.
It is.
Yes.
Which is very ironic because it's the last contact we want is anything from Secret Hideout.
Leave it to script and come up with something like that.
I like that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he does that quite often. That's why we keep him around.
So Chato, yeah, I can see that your excitement is so palpable. You can touch
Oh
and
yeah, so
feel it.
you're just bursting.
Well, I wrote a tweet that said if Terry is not involved in any of this, not Section 31, but the Academy, then it's just going to be Kurtzman crap.
Yeah,
and
he himself has already said he's not. Yeah,
it is, and I got an insane number of responses. The amount of hatred towards Kurtzman is beyond palpable. I mean, obviously,
well learned, wouldn't you say?
Yes, I totally agree, and I'm sure he stays off of social media, and he has his circle of sycophants that follow him like some kind of cartoon from Warner Brothers. And they're just telling him such, great things of how fabulous he is, which actually I saw a lot of in Hollywood. And that's also in the music business too. Oh, forget about that concert. It was, it's the audience's fault. So he's got his circle of sycophants telling him how fabulous he is. And I mean, the thing is, he's got money in his pocket. 2001, the contract was renegotiated for 5 years or whatever to do more.
Up to 2026. That is his overall deal with the studio, which is separate from Secret Hideout Star Trek deal.
So all we can do is I'm completely willing to wait till the thing is done and then hear what other people have to say about it. I can't help it. I'm part of this universe that you guys are all also part of. It's not like we will completely shut ourselves off from any kind of upcoming news with regards to the impending doom that these things are going to represent upon their release. We're going to know about it, and we're going to be interested in at least hearing what kind of a disaster they are. And all I can hope for is whatever set that Kurtzman comes up with, it's actually bigger than Discovery, because the bridge was way too small for my taste. That's all I have to say.
Oh yeah, Section 31 is going to be a whole space station.
Total. Well,
24s.
Tube lighting, everything. And if it ever gets hit, then for some reason, no one's actually taped up any of the structural tubing or wiring, and they'll just fall out of the ceiling.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, they do not have conduit tape in the future.
Well,
they build their ships out of concrete, because whenever they explode, there's always concrete rubble that's thrown about, and it's like, well, why are they using cement in a spaceship? It's metal. They don't.
You just don't know. I mean, it's you'd think by then they would make use of something other than concrete script.
You're right. Yeah. And it's not even transparent concrete, so it's not nothing of value.
My favorite thing though is the attack on the bridge, and you've got tubing and wiring that's going.
Well, the thing in Section 31 is you got to worry about is you get fined if you have too many lights in your office.
That's right, or you misgender someone in the lunchroom.
Yes, in the lunchroom. Yes,
that's right. I'd
you
like
stay
to have
out of the gay line. Unless you're gay, you stay out of that
right.
line.
It's the Section 31 gay line. You can't unless you.
There's only 31 genders in Section 31.
Yes. And you're not one of them. Sorry,
That's
get to
right.
the end of the line. No,
That's right. And
so James,
don't
go.
misgender the pop machine.
So James, are you a Star Trek fan at all? You've been kind of quiet here this morning. I apologize.
Well, no. I was going to say, like, it's weird for me because my father was like still alive, but he was a huge Next Generation fan. So when I said was, I was just like, that sounds weird. It's just that he hasn't watched Star Trek since, what was that with Scott Bakula? Was that in
2005?
That would have been 2004 or 5.
Yeah, that ended in 2005.
That was the one. That was the last show he watched. But I grew up. My dad was, massive fan of kind of the original, but mainly Next Generation. I remember thinking it was, as a kid, early teens, but thinking it was the most boring show I'd ever seen. So he would like ask me to record episodes for him before he came home from work. So getting from school, the old days of taping, play and record. That sounds quite an archaic VHS recorder I described there, but you couldn't always rely on the timer. So I'd make sure that I'd record the episodes. And weird little side thing, he bought, like, my dad's not this kind of geeky guy at all, but he bought like this unofficial Star Trek nitpicker's guide to the Next Generation. I remember him getting this book from a comic shop. We were like visiting a friend, and I was going to a comic shop, and he's like, "Oh, Star Trek, I might buy this." I remember going through this book, watching like the episodes as I recorded them for him, and being really fascinated, thinking, "Oh, reading the trivia and the bits like that." I remember this is connecting to He-Man, but I should be like, someone should write a nitpicker's guide to He-Man and She-Ra. And then I did the unofficial guide, which led to the Dark Horse official guide. So that was kind of like how that weirdly connected. But around about 2016, I think it was, I was living with a friend, and she had Netflix, and she was like, "You want to share an account?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And I think they'd just put up all the Star Trek. And I thought, I'll give it a watch. And I started from the original, like from the very first episode of the original series. And I watched that, and I was like, oh, and I know this is really stupid because I kind of knew this already, having spoke to the writers of 80s cartoons. But the amount of parallels and influences from the original Star Trek to He-Man, Ghostbusters, all those shows, it was like, oh, wow, I can see why these guys, were writing these episodes influenced by what they grew up with. And then I watched Next Generation. I really enjoyed all of that. And I remember thinking as a teenager, like my dad watched Deep Space Nine, and one of my other friends had described it like as a freeway, a motorway service station in space. It was like, oh, nothing ever happens in that show. And I watched Deep Space Nine, and I think that kind of became my favorite Star Trek. I was like, oh, I really enjoy this series. The story arcs in that show were so powerful. And then I tried to watch Voyager, but I kind of checked out during the first season. I was like, I'm not really fit. Plus, I know this is going to sound lame, it wasn't in HD. I'd seen original Next Generation. No, is it not? Yeah, because like seeing Next Generation, I understand they fitted with the computer graphics. I'm such an old man. The CGI to make it modern and clean and stuff. But as soon as you got to Voyager, and it was just I didn't really connect. I've always heard Janeway's like one of the best, but I wasn't really connecting with the show. Maybe I'll revisit in a number of years. But yeah, I never thought of myself as like a fan of Star Trek, and I watched the show and I was like, oh, I think I can be. And I won't lie, I know I may catch a lot of flack from people and comments. I didn't mind the bear in mind I hadn't seen the original series at the time or anything like that. So I didn't mind the movies that came out, or the first two anyway, movies that came out, the one with I can't remember, Star Trek and then Into Darkness. Oh, if you ask me what happened in any of those movies, I can't remember anything. Because then I went to watch the better Star Trek, the original. It's
okay, neither can J.J. Abrams remember.
Yeah, that's probably true. And
Kurtzman wrote that one too, by the way.
Yes, and I mean, looking back, it's like, oh God, and then I went back and watched, like I say, the original series, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and all the movies. Really enjoyed the motion picture. I've always heard that's the boring one. I thought that was a really fascinating story.
That is a very intimate one. I like it a lot.
That's visuals. I mean, 79 was it came out?
Yep.
And such I understand like what they were doing visuals at that time. There's a lot of a lot of in-camera stuff, and they were really working their asses off to make it look good. But I really enjoyed like the pace of it, and I get you're taking a TV series, putting it on the big screen. So look at the shots of the Enterprise we got. I know it's become almost like a trope when describing that movie, but I really enjoyed the motion picture. Maybe that's odd, but yeah. And looking back, when I went to see, like I say, the JJ films, it's like, oh, I don't think I could watch them again now, because they are so modern-esque interpretations of what a sci-fi film should be. I enjoyed them in the cinema.
You don't like Beastie Boys in your Star Trek?
Oh my god, that third one! What was that? That was was it the third one? That
the third one's probably arguably the most Trek-like of all of them, but yeah.
Yeah, but him on a motorbike driving around, and I was like, what is this? And I mean, like, I liked him as a comedian, but I could never get over Simon Pegg's Scotty, where he was like, oh, look at me doing my Scottish accent. It's like,
Simon Pegg actually wrote that third one.
Yes, I believe he did.
Yeah, he did.
That would be,
or at least was one of the co-writers.
Which is why it's better than the Kurtzman written second.
Yeah.
From a original TOS viewer, the one common objection we had with the very first Star Trek movie, I mean, I agree with you. It was beautiful, subtle, much more 2001-y.
Yes.
And it was because it was a repeat of the episode called Nomad.
Yeah.
That was our nerdy objection of the time. Was,
yeah, I get it.
Oh, they just rated the episode Nomad. You know?
Yeah, basically an Earth probe was repaired by another species, and its concept of sterilizing it took literally, and then that's what it would do.
So not to spoil it for you, I'm just saying that was
No, but James, I will say this: over the years, the first film and the fifth film have gotten a lot more followers and a lot more praise than they used to.
And Deep Space Nine, I think you started liking it because, in the first 1 or 2 years, nothing was going on, and then Babylon 5 came out, and bang, they started putting in long arcs in it. And then, I mean, it was clear to me, they went, oh, they just ripped off Babylon 5.
Well, no, looked at that. Both shows came out the same month, premiered the same month.
Yeah, I guess they did, but it took Deep. I mean, first of all, I don't think anyone thought anything of Deep Space Nine when it first came out. I mean, of Babylon 5. It took a while
for it to catch on, yeah. But the strange thing is, it's weird because like Razorfist has actually some great comments on this, but the rumors that Babylon 5 was ripped off to make Deep Space Nine are difficult to substantiate because a lot of the people that worked on Deep Space Nine had no association with anyone.
But I'm not talking about that.
But I'm just talking about as they built in the Defiant, Babylon 5 brought in their own ship that they did a season later. So it's like, who's really stealing from each other? I don't know. I don't know all the details of that. But both are great shows too.
Yes, really but I think Deep Space Nine did. Well, they did not have. I don't want to get into this now. But Deep Space Nine did not have story arcs in it in its first year or two.
No. I remember it being quite episodic.
Yeah.
What's the latest episode? It's like the drinks machine, the drinks machine's empty or something. It's like, this is a story. I mean, it wasn't that bad, but
that's right.
I found the first couple of seasons quiet, and then when they got going with those story arcs, it was like, oh wow, and it became like it really reaches a crescendo where it's like, this is Deep Space Nine. And after people would ask me like, what did you think of Star Trek? And I was like, man, Deep Space Nine was brilliant.
I did have a problem with the money grubbing, large-eared alien. Wink, wink.
The Ferengi.
Yes. Oh, who were they? Interested in money and cheating people, and they had big ears. They
had buttocks on their forehead.
That's right. They have buttocks on their forehead, which most of us Jews have. We have those hats.
Well, that development came as a result of TNG because the Ferengi were supposed to be the new Klingons, but their concept design of being played by short actors and into profit just made them go, yeah, we can't make them intimidating warriors, so let's just make them very much greedy uber capitalists and go that well.
With big ears, wink, wink. Anyway, so we've just sidetracked it. Sorry, James.
No. Just saying. So when they announced, I think it was, what was the first of these news? Was it Discovery? I tried watching it. It just feels like it's there's like an element of magic that's been lost from a lot of these shows. And I couldn't try Picard because I read a review, and maybe I shouldn't, you know, you should judge things, of course, on your own, but I was reading so many bad things about Picard. And I'm sure it has a fan base, of course, and like I said, I'm hearing so many good things about the 3rd season, but it's like I kind of like that I've seen Star Trek The Next Generation, and it ends with, you know, if you don't count the movies, it ends with like this wonderful shot of like a card game. It's like perfect. That was a wonderful, you know, end to this great series. But yeah, you know, at this point, you know, you guys are showing all these shows that are going to be announced, or that are being announced and stuff. It's almost like it's content for content's sake. It's like, what IPs have we got? Star Trek, yeah, just slap a logo on this show and let's make another. Let's do, oh, another one. When you think about decades past, it was like, I remember when Deep Space Nine was announced, it was like ahead of time. It was so exciting because, wow, we're going to get a new Star Trek show? Even though I wasn't a fan of it, I just remember like being such a big deal. But now it's like every other week, it's like, oh, there's another Star Trek show. There's another Marvel TV series. I grew up wanting so badly to see decent superhero movies. You know, my earliest Hulk was, bless him, Lou Ferrigno painted green. Worked for me as a kid, but I was like, oh, I really want to see the Hulk and Thor. Oh, they're going to bring Thor into the, oh, it's a bloke dressed up in a Viking costume. And then the MCU begins to happen with Iron Man. I was like, oh, these are the movies I want. And then it gets to a point, and then it's like, oh, now, you know, when they announced they were doing a She-Hulk TV show, I was like, oh my God, I love the She-Hulk. I loved her in the Avengers comics in the 80s where, you know, she was fighting the Masters of Evil, and there's all this great stuff going on. And then the TV show happens, and I see clips of her twerking and stuff. It's like, what is this? What I don't get what these characters are anymore. It just seems to be a lot of people getting hired to work on these shows and going, I'm going to tell my story. It's like, no, tell the fucking story of the She-Hulk. Sorry, excuse my language, but tell the story of the She-Hulk.
No, you're in the right place.
Absolutely, that's fine. But someone who was in the right place right up until now is Mr. Chato, who unfortunately has to be leaving us.
Double check to make sure we aren't missing any super chats for the.
Do that.
Great.
But in the meantime, while we check that, what do you have planned coming up, Paul?
Just the video that I think talked about behind the scenes, and that is people have been challenging my former network executive moniker, demanding what kind of creative stuff I've done. So what I'm going to do is recreate the pitches of 3 shows I did in LA that didn't get picked up, but you're going to see the pitches and hear them, and you're going to be able to judge me. I'm brave enough to be able to put myself out there, but I'll take the fucking video down if you're cruel. I'm just telling you.
So you heard it here, folks. Make sure you copy it so you have it.
Yeah,
when he takes it down.
There you go. Thanks for the advance warning. How long till you hit 100K?
I'm 500 away now.
Wow,
he's right up on the cusp there.
We should be celebrating it next couple of weeks then.
Yeah.
He won't be here though when we finally do, because
it might come around for your birthday, actually.
Yes, that's right. 4 days before Hitler's. I'm so proud.
But I'm not seeing any super chats specifically for you, Paul. So I think
my birthday is on the same day as Charlie Chaplin's, though, which I that I will gladly.
The other Hitler
I will
guy.
Gladly take the other Hitler guy. Well, he played Hitler.
Yeah.
Funny Hitler.
The funny Hitler.
Hinkle, I believe it was.
Yeah, that was a brilliant movie.
One of the best movies ever made.
A ballet. I mean, yeah.
For those that do not know, we are talking about Charlie Chaplin's The Great Dictator.
The Great Dictator.
If you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor. Check it out. Do not mistake it for Sacha Baron Cohen's The Dictator, because that one is
nowhere near as funny.
The Dictator, not great, although that too is very good, but it's not in the same league as The Great Dictator.
And let me just leave you with this Charlie Chaplin story. My daughter brought home a bunch of her high school friends. I mean, everyone's in and out of each other's homes, and I said, look, let me put on this movie that I want you to see. And my daughter groans, and then it was Charlie Chaplin, the Gold Rush movie, which is a fairly long movie that's silent, and like throw it on, and the first thing out of the girls' mouths were, "Oh, it's black and white." And then oh, there's no words, and like they're kind of like didn't want to see it. And I said, no, just sit down, just watch. Within about 15 minutes, they're all quiet and they're laughing. And they got completely sucked into this entire world that Charlie Chaplin created. So that to me demonstrates that if you do things that are good, that are compelling, that are unique, even a bunch of cynical young kids who haven't been immersed into that kind of art, I think can be taken over and they can appreciate that kind of stuff. So, which is why we need to do good, creative, interesting things now and not just turn out superhero movies.
Well,
and ActionCom has one here for you at the last minute. It says, Chato, you guys are nuts. Mo Howard is the funniest Hitler. Well, and when you're looking up, if you're trying to find the great dictator, make sure you don't misspell it as the great dictator. I had a bad experience with that. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, there's also
I knew Paul would like that one.
There's also Ron or Russell Mail.
Oh,
Ron,
shit.
There's Ron Mail.
Oh, nice. Sparks.
From Sparks, one of my favorite all-time bands. So, are you a Sparks fan, James?
I wouldn't say I profess to know their music. My parents do love, every once in a while, they'll be watching like VH1. VH1 still show old music videos. And it was just, I always knew Sparks as like that guy standing there like,
yes,
when he's playing the moustache, just such a great character. There was I believe there was like a documentary that came out of you.
Yes.
Yeah, apparently
I think it's on YouTube. Yeah, I think you can get it on YouTube. It might be. I think I've seen it there.
It starts good and then peters off at the end. Anyways, thank you very much, everyone. And I always appreciate the time I spend with you. You're wonderful people, and I'll see you next week.
Fantastic.
Have a great weekend,
Have a
Paul.
great weekend.
And if it's not on YouTube, then it's got to be on Netflix. It's on one of the two because I remember seeing it back when. But anyway, moving on here.
Let's do
Andre,
the Star Trek Super Chats before we move into the final
If you haven't
round
hit
of
the
Disney
thumbs up,
news.
though, please hit the thumbs up like Dr. Long Dongler here. He always does. Thank you so much. Speaking of Paramount news, Dash Attack says Paramount must roll a perfect check 15 or to see if they can break even. 20 means P plus spin-offs and sequels. This
combining two subjects, Dungeons and Dragons and Star Trek.
and Star Trek, because both are Paramount properties now, evidently. So, yeah, I think we missed that during the D&D discussion. Sorry about that, Dash. But, and Kurtzman's definitely rolled snake eyes here. Kathleen Morrison says, do you think the trick Disney pulled on Reedy Creek? Well, we're going to save this one, right? Andre?
Could you say that one more time?
Are we saving we're saving this Reedy Creek one, right?
Yeah, we'll save we'll get back to the Reedy Creek because that's one of the things we're talking about in Disney afterwards. We'll save that one.
That was my fault. Ash Barnray. I'm so sorry. I just ruined your name. Boehner. There you go. That's probably right. Star Trek Academy is Kurtzman's chasing trends, trying to offer teen drama Wednesday crowd. It will not resonate with Star Trek fans or the teen crowd. Actually, I don't know if you caught our video from yesterday, Ash, but this is a series that Kurtzman has been pitching since the beginning.
Since 2018.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is something he's been wanting to do for a while. And from what Andre said in the video yesterday, basically, he keeps redressing it and repitching it. And finally, they said yes.
I think they probably said yes because I wouldn't be surprised if Kurtzman pointed to something like Wednesday and said, look how successful that was.
Yep.
And
I think you're right. That's probably the most recent pitch. She was like, okay, Wednesday in Starfleet.
And Hogwarts Legacy.
And Hogwarts Legacy. He basically said, we could have been the trailblazers from this, but you didn't. So now these shows are. So let's do this and get ahead of them as quickly as we can. That's probably what he did.
Or catch up anyway.
Yeah.
No, I agree with Script there. I think that's probably the case. I think that's probably what happened.
Which is funny because that's completely antithetical to what the atmosphere is like at Starfleet Academy. It's not.
Right.
They can't afford the drama over there because
that's what it sounds like. It's going to be. It's going to be a bunch of drama, and then there's some life-ending
galactic threat of Starfleet Academy.
What the hell are they going to have to do with that?
Exactly. They're cadets. They're.
This ain't Police Academy, motherfucker. This ain't their first assignment.
Even with Police Academy, there's a riot that ensued, so they had to draw everybody. And the riot was a result of the arrogance of one of the cadets with the officer.
That's why, and I say it again, Police Academy is a masterpiece.
Yep.
Perfectly written film.
Let's watch that first one again.
It's hard to argue. Somebody argue it with me. Anyway, Rip Star Trek says Paramount has had many changes and reasons to liberate us from Bad Robot and Secret Hideout. Once again, they always make the wrong and unprofitable choice. Yeah, and unfortunately, it seems to be now so more that is coming clear, at least, if this is the case and it turns out to be true, that snagging Michelle Yeoh for a Section 31 show would definitely be something that would keep Kurtzman around on CBS's good side. And even the whole there's been rumblings about Terry, but as far as we know, nobody's spoken to him yet about any future Star Trek projects.
Correct.
So at this rate, we'll have to wait and see how it goes. But as we've said, you know this just as well as we do, Rip Star Trek, that Picard season 3 was the end. It was always gonna be the end. But now they're also stuck into a problem with, if it had been a bigger hit, they probably would have walked away from Kurtzman a lot easier. I think this is what solidified his future, if there is one. We still don't know. He's still got 2 years to do a lot of this crap. Don't
He's
forget
still
that.
got 2 years, and here's the other part too. If none of the subsequent seasons that come out of the other shows hit on the critical level of Picard, that's going to be very telling to Paramount. We can only have to cross our fingers that they're actually paying attention to that.
Yeah, let's hope. Until then, I think that Picard season 3 is kind of like the Batman. It's a data point that can be interpreted multiple directions.
You're right. You're right.
I was laughing at the comment there. It just said a show full of Wesleys.
That's all we need, right? No shit. We got rid of him for most of Picard, from what I understand. So, like, yeah, no, now we're getting more of him. No. Montaro's been a member for 9 months. Thank you so much. And so has STR Red Wolf for 6. Thank you so very much. And thank you again for those super chats there, guys. Let me get back up to speed here where we were. Where is the Trek one? Sorry about that. I will just grab this one for now. Andre, read that while I'm looking for Trek ones.
Yeah, absolutely. Lost for Words says for £2, hail to the chat and hail to the Midnight's Edge in the morning panel. Well, thank you, and hail one, hail all.
And then we've got Ryan Bannon.
Who says for $5 million, the Star Trek Academy, aka Star Trek 90210. It's an old idea from the 90s/early 2000s. Kurtzman ain't original, but he will F it up. Yeah, this is something that we have heard before. I mean, Kurtzman, he has a history of appropriating others' ideas. I mean, look no further than Star Trek Discovery for that. I mean, you even have
look at
like
the
this
island.
whole...
The controversy
or the
around
island,
the island.
Matter, absolutely.
He was
sued, didn't he?
He was sued for plagiarism.
Yeah.
Wow.
I did like the island though, like full disclosure, but yeah.
He lost that suit too.
I'm not surprised. Dash Attack says for $4.99, resending. Paramount must make a performance check of 15 to break even. Oh, on 20 critical success, sequels get made. Yeah.
And then Mr. Tickle Trunk says this version of Section 31 isn't even canon.
Well,
Poopy thumbs
that's a saving grace, though. I mean, nothing Discovery related actually is.
And then
Kilroy was here, says for $5, regardless of Matala's presence. If it's made by Secret Hideout, it's not Star Trek, no matter what. And yeah, I can get behind that point of view. Maverick Christian says for $10, I actually would have liked to see a Section 31 series, a morally grey rogue Federation group. But I don't trust Kurtzman at all to put out a well-written show of that sort. No, nor should you.
Well, this comes from actually a great misunderstanding of what Section 31 was, because it was introduced in Deep Space Nine, and it's really just one guy. And he's basically on his own, and there's no one else in Section 31. It's just him doing some stuff. He's got incredible resources and basically like an ultimate Federation spy. But when he dies, Section 31 is technically supposed to die with him. Unfortunately, what ended up happening in Star Trek Enterprise is that they reintroduced Section 31 as something of an actual parallel infrastructure, which kind of ruins the idea, because Starfleet and Earth at that point would never go to these routes, these unethical routes. And that was the kind of the yin and yang approach that was being addressed in Deep Space Nine, is that oh, there's this one rogue ex-Starfleet intelligence officer who's somehow deleted all of the history that he ever had of himself in database, and he's basically a ghost. And he's doing all these things in the name of Starfleet and the Federation, but Starfleet has no knowledge of him. And whenever he interacts with someone, he just drives them kind of nuts trying to accomplish his own missions. And he's doing it for the quote unquote greater good, but he's really a rogue agent. And the fact that subsequent writers decided to incorporate that idea as an actual infrastructure within Starfleet and then double down on that with the secret hideout stuff completely guts the morality that the Federation Starfleet is trying to uphold, because they're not supposed to be like the 20th century versions of various intelligence agencies. They're supposed to be above all that, because they know how such agencies and especially because of such power can actually cripple a proper system like a republic or a democracy. And yeah, so them trying to play around with this series, it's going to do more damage than good anyways.
Yeah.
But it's just basically showing how the science fiction writers of this generation within Hollywood are not understanding the consequences of what they're doing. They're putting the idea of cool and the direct parallels of current era above what best fits within the universe of this society.
Can I ask,
oh, please go.
I was going to say, can I ask a question of you guys? Like I said, I checked out Star Trek, as in Voyager season 1-ish. Do you, like, I haven't really asked this question of anybody before, but do you think 10, 20 years from now, will there be a fan base of the Kurtzman shows, as there was for the original Next Generation DS9? Like, oh, we love those shows. Do you think it's building a new audience, or do you think 10, 20 years from now, people will be like, oh yeah, do you remember when they tried to do Star Trek again? Like, I genuinely ask that question.
That's a great question, James. And because I think it's a great question, mainly because we've heard people like KK and others in this crowd of pushing the agenda, basically saying things to the sort of, well, we're not making it for the fans of, the old fans, or even necessarily the fans of today. We're making it for the future. This will be relevant in the future. This always has to do with go along with that saying of being on the right side of history.
Yeah.
I would like to believe, and again, it could go either way, but I'd like to believe that no, I think this is stuff that will probably get lost at some point as like a very embarrassing point, kind of like we had a few of those points in like the late 80s and mid 90s. There were just some embarrassing stuff that we don't always talk about. Talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Next Mutation.
Or it might also be like, they spun off MASH, and nobody.
That's a great one too. Yeah.
So, and yeah, the spinoff of MASH actually betrayed a lot of the final resolutions of the characters in the last season of MASH. So it might go that way. The reason I don't think it's going to stand is because none of the subject matter in any of those episodes has anything that can be considered universal. It's very dated. It's very much of its time. Like, I know people who could probably go back to, speaking of the 90s, watch this television series, very peculiar one called Time Tracks, where it's just some guy like
Time Tracks, yeah.
Oh wow!
Here's the thing: you have a smile when you said that you remembered it, which means that there's at least something positive about it that you can recall.
Totally
it was kind of an underplayed show with had Henry Darrow in it for a bit, but yeah, like, I don't think it's going to have the ability for people to look back on that smile and go, oh yeah, I remember that. I think they'll go back and look at it. It's like, oh right, remember when they tried to make Star Trek, dour and boring and political and like blatantly current day politics, political. There's definitely going to have its niche group of fans. It's
of course
because every franchise has the ones that it doesn't matter what the level of quality is, they love it so much that it's theirs for them. That is perfectly fine. But I don't think it's going to have the reverence. We've already seen enough footage from various Star Trek conventions where members of the Discovery cast are at tables that have 0 lines of people waiting to talk with them.
Really?
And that's pretty disappointing for the actors. I feel sorry for them, but they're not doing anything to help their cause on social media or with the fans in and of themselves either. So
when we were at the convention, and this is just from my own eyes, the only 2 members of the Discovery cast that showed up that actually had a line were Sonequa Martin Green and Doug Jones. And you can imagine why. Doug Jones, he's a freaking pioneer. He's been in everything.
Hocus Pocus, tons of makeup. Yeah.
Tons of movies. And Sonequa Martin Green, probably more so because she was in The Walking Dead more than anything, I'd imagine. Because even on the floor, like, there wasn't all that many people dressed with disco shirts or dressed up like any of the characters from the show. Like, the best one was somebody was dressed as Saru and they had the whole getup. That was probably the closest to somebody who actually put a good amount of work into a Discovery outfit. Otherwise, it was all classic Trek stuff. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't think it resonated at all with the fans. And we saw the same thing with the first 2 seasons of Picard, which is why I think this third season suffered, is I think Picard was the moment that everybody checked out, not just the Trek fans, but the normies. Because much like, I don't know if you were paying attention to Star Wars when Obi-Wan Kenobi dropped, I think that's the moment that a lot of people tuned in and they realized, oh crap, what happened to Star Wars now?
Yeah.
Since either, The Last Jedi or the third film in the sequel trilogy. So yeah, I think it's grown stagnant, and I think out of all of this mess, the only things that might live on in the future might be Picard season 3, possibly Prodigy or Strange New Worlds. Other than that, I don't think any of them have a future at all.
Yes, I also, not to go down another road of conversation, I don't want to deviate from where you guys are going, but you do wonder if it's just like modern consumption of media as well. Back in the day, obviously, Next Generation, episodic, weekly TV, DS, the way we consumed it. And these days it's just like, here's a series, all at once. Maybe it's not the case with all Star Trek stuff, but, and, the younger generation, just, I don't know, maybe they just don't have the attention span or the willingness to, but then if you make something good, people watch, right? Like, so, it's, like I say, as a kid, I had no real interest in Next Generation, watched it later and thought, holy crap, this is great. But yeah, there's the great thing about those original shows is there's such, if you turn off the audio, just the visuals are going to captivate you, whether it be like the kind of very comfy looking deck of the Enterprise in Next Generation, or the very 1960s look of the deck in the original series. Everything I see now is just so muted, like not muted palette, but just all dark and shadows. And obviously we saw it those movies, as you said earlier, the lens flare. Yeah. There's nothing to really like visually. Whenever I see trailers for a lot of those shows, just like there's nothing pulling me in going, oh, this is going to be great. It's just like, whenever I see trailers for Picard, I'm like, what has this got to do with anything I saw before? There doesn't seem to be any connection. And I've seen a few clips of.
Sorry, James. I was just gonna say, I think I know what you're getting at, and I think what they're kind of missing is, there's a signature look to Star Trek.
Yeah.
Right. And
even
inviting. Well, besides that script, you're right. I'm not arguing there. But the other thing I'm talking about is, even though we talk about how dark and all these other shows are now from Star Trek, I've watched TNG recently. It's not exactly lit like the old Star Trek was. TNG was lit pretty dark. The difference though was the uniforms and the surroundings weren't all dark. Like the uniforms popped more because they were in more darker kind of settings, as opposed to here where everything's muted colors or darker colors. And it's like the few times when actually somebody does wear something even remotely close to Star Trek, it stands out like a sore thumb. And in some cases we call it member berries because of that, but it's like, no, you're just actually finally seeing somebody wear something that we're used to seeing in Star Trek, right? Like, yeah. And a lot of this, from what we heard from our sources, was not even so much they wanted to change it just to change it. It was that they were getting notes that we want, and this goes back to Star Trek 09. We want it to be more updated. It can't look like the old stuff. They're for some reason are just so against. The uppers at that time were so against Star Trek looking or sounding or remotely being like, not too bright, not too whatever, that kind of stuff. They're dead against all that stuff. So you notice with 2009 Star Trek, that's when the darkening and the muted colors and stuff started to come in.
Yeah, it's just, I guess, it's just one of those things. But it just, at this point, announcing shows like a new Star Trek show, that like decades ago, that'd have been so exciting. Like, oh my god! I mean, now it's just like they announced, like I say, Marvel films, Marvel shows. I'm like, they're going to make a show about She-Hulk or another character I really like, and it's just like, they're just making content for content's sake these days. And then I see something really random, and that I saw a film recently called Censor, like kind of British independent film about a woman that works in basically in the 1980s British during the whole VHS horror film, video nasty they used to call it.
Oh yeah.
And her job is to censor films, so she'll go through, and there's this whole it's a great film. It's like an hour and a half, good 90-minute film, and it's not a superhero film. It's it's just something so lovely about it. I mean, it was a horror, but it was just like, oh, this feels different to everything I've been watching in the last few years. Not to go on a massive tangent, but last year I saw for the first time Once Upon a Time in the West by Sergio Leone, and I remember just watching that thinking that was quite possibly one of the best films I've ever seen. Why the hell have I been watching these Marvel films? Obviously I've enjoyed them because of the comic book stuff, but you see something like that and it's like, that's cinema, that's filmmaking. Whereas now, obviously, it's common knowledge that Marvel pretty much plan all their action scenes first and go, should we hire a director? Yeah, but hire a director, but tell him what to do, he or her what to do, and that they'll put their vision on screen. And it's I don't know how much, man. I don't know how much longer the current state of that cinema is, but I don't believe in superhero fatigue, because I think you make a good movie, it's a good movie.
Yep.
But I think Marvel got so caught up in this formula, and I look at Quantumania. You tell me Kang the Conqueror's coming into the Marvel universe, I'm like, oh my god! Like, I loved Kang, especially like in one of my biggest first comics I ever bought was like Secret Wars. There was the Marvel UK version, which would do a weekly version, break up the comic. I loved Secret Wars, and Kang was there, the Absorbing Man, the Molecule Man. Like, where's he at the MCU? But all these great characters, and I thought Kang's going to be in it, and I saw, they cast, I forget his name, the guy from Creed 3, Jonathan Majors.
Majors, yeah.
Looks like a very imposing dude. It's like, this looks great. And then I see some of the first kind of clips. I'm like, oh, okay, this seems a bit. And then you see some of the CGI, and I know people might rag on me for this and go, oh, he wasn't a serious character anyway. If you read the comics and saw MODOK may look a giant head with little arms and legs, but he was horrifying to look at. No pupils, like scarred face. And then you see the version that appears in the film, and it's just like, what is this? This looks like a joke. And the people defending it are like, oh, that's what MODOK's never supposed to be taken seriously. So clearly you've never read a comic in which MODOK appeared, like an Iron Man comic or something from back in the day. I saw the CGI of like this scene where MODOK is attacking Kang, and it's like, my name is something, I am not a dick. And it's like, what is this? What has this film universe become? And I'm sure there's loads of people going, I say that. I've seen the box office for Ant-Man Quantumania, but I'm so I know I'm just going on a rant here, but I've just checked out of like this universe, this Marvel universe that I never thought I would check out of, because I love those comics. And
I agree with you, James, and I've noticed the same thing, and especially when I visit something older, or another film that I visited last night that we'll probably talk about here in a few minutes. But I think you're spot on with that, and that's a big problem, is just this overwhelming, I don't know what you kind of call it, because it's not even necessarily superhero fatigue. It's just big bloated box, blockbuster fatigue or whatever is kind of what I would.
Well, it's just crappy, lazy writing and manipulation. Like, that's exactly what it is. Yeah. I mean, listen, the only argument I've had with regards to defending MODOK that I could say is a possible decent one to support is the Iron Man cartoon, where MODOK is literally the butt of the Mandarin's jokes. However, that's still not MODOK from the comics.
No, definitely not.
And I'm like thinking, listen, the one thing you really don't want to emulate from Marvel when adapting their stuff is the 90s versions of their cartoons. Some of them had good episodes, but most of them were very cheesy, especially Fantastic Four. And so you don't really go that route. But lo and behold, what we're getting is basically that's what's happening with Marvel right now. They're falling into that early 90s cartoon era.
Rather cheesy.
They're just, it's just it's become cheese. It's no longer something that has this accessibility to a wider audience. It's trying to fit into a niche
moldy
that
cheese
is
sorry
being built off of them emulating like Joss Whedon's incorporation of his irreverent levity. And then on top of that, Taika Waititi's stuff that he did with Thor Ragnarok, but most egregiously with Thor Love and Thunder.
Oh, Love and Thunder.
And lacking the heart that came with the humor in the Guardians of the Galaxy's films.
Yeah.
It's all just it's all superficial emulation as opposed to understanding like, well, where does this actually come from? Why is it being done in this way? The people that are making the decisions just don't get it. And they're hiring people that are not experienced enough to understand it and execute what those higher ups are asking for to be done in a way that it's like, we know if we get some jokes in here, people will like it. Yes, that is true. But you need someone that understands where to place those jokes, how they have to have meaning, and why they'll have an impact on audiences. You can't just throw it in there because you hired a writer who was on staff from Rick and Morty and thought that they did a good job there. They're two completely different genres with two completely different sets of requirements in order for them to pull off what you're asking.
And we're getting the same thing with Star Trek. I mean, and that was my point, was like it kind of went off the rails quicker than Marvel for the same reasons, basically. At least on that point, not so much the woke side of things. That came in later with Kurtzman era. And speaking of, Mr. Tickle Trunk says Kurtzman is a yes man. Why would they fire him? Exactly. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
He does that. Fatty says I look forward more to the porn parody section 69. Oh, I see what you did.
Actually, I don't think there's been any Star Trek porn parody since Discovery came out, so I guess we have that to be thankful for.
Well, that's true. DCV Titan says the person I feel most sorry for is J.J. Abrams' wife. Why? Man promises a lot and has a good setup, but can't finish for shit. Yes, he can't finish in bed. No. Wartooth 88 says Star Trek 5 is the first and last time Bill was allowed to direct a Star Trek film. I believe Roddenberry even claimed it's non-canon. However, it's my second favorite. Yeah, that's what I was saying, Wartooth, off of what James was saying. The motion picture and 5 have really gotten a lot more fans over the years, and I don't think that
5 it was always a fairly good movie for the character development of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. It suffered because of some basically some strikes and politics, studio politics. Had William Shatner not been screwed over by a lot of the other people involved in the higher ups, I think that would have been a movie on par probably with Star Trek 4.
I honestly say, and this is why I brought it up when we brought up the motion picture, after watching it again for the first time in quite a few years here recently, it's like, man, of all the first 6 films, this one and the first film are the most like the actual TV show.
Yep.
Right? Like they actually feel like they could have been episodes. Well, obviously the first film was kind of a ripoff of an episode already, but like even the 5th film does feel like they're, we've had similar episodes to those where you had an entity pretending to be God or some other huge entity, and it has that great line that everybody quotes wrong, but it's what does God need with a starship? But so yeah.
Weird thing. I saw Star Trek 5, even though I hadn't seen any of the other movies. Saw Star Trek 5 at the cinema in Canada in August of '89 because my father and I went on there on holiday, and we saw. I don't know why. Every night we were there, pretty much every night. We were there for 2.5 weeks. Saw loads of movies, and the summer of '89 was just the craziest amount of movies, like Batman, Indiana Jones, Last Crusade, The Abyss. We saw that. Turner and Hooch, that was there. UHF, Weird Al. We saw all these films, and one of them was Star Trek 5. I remember just for some reason the image always stuck in my head of just was it Spock with his jet boots and William Shatner climbing the rock face. I was just like, just stuck in my head forever. That did. And Ghostbusters 2, we saw that as well.
Yep, I was just gonna say Ghostbusters 2 came out that year.
Yeah, so many. It was crazy.
That's the movie I saw
summer.
opening weekend, and you had Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade and all that stuff.
Back to the Future 2, I believe.
Back to the Future 2 came out that fall. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. And
it's a good year.
It was a very good year for film. Yes. A lot of sequels that year, but you know what's funny about Star Trek 5? The thing that I remember most is that marshmallow dispenser. You could order one free through one of the marshmallow companies.
All it did was hold marshmallows. It didn't do anything.
That's all it did. Yeah, he's right. I think it had actually not totally script. I think there was like a thing on the bottom, like if you pushed it up, it would actually push the marshmallow, but you had to do it yourself. Like it wouldn't actually do it like the movie, but like But yeah, that's the only thing I kind of remember from that era of it. But anyway, ActionCom sends in $10, says, you guys are nuts. Problem with Star Trek The Motion Picture is that V'ger is too powerful. Doesn't give the Enterprise crew much to do except sit and wait for weakness.
They're
On a surface level, yes. But there's a lot more going on in that film than I think a lot of people give it credit for.
Yeah, as soon as they get inside, Spock goes out in a jet suit to research and try and mind meld with this thing, and that immediately results in the probe of Ilea. And no, things happen in that movie at a pretty decent pace. It feels slow because there's all these vast wide shots, and the music is really taking its time to build up and show you that this is a huge level threat. In the original version before the HD came out, you never got a clear shot of V'ger once the cloud vanished, and you couldn't.
No.
Because they didn't really have the effects finished for that. But recently they finished it, and you look at it at this ship, and it's a gorgeous looking and intimidating vessel.
Yeah, the director's edition's really well done, but they did some tweaks I wasn't happy about, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Even from the original one, I don't know if you've heard Robert Meyer Burnett go off about that, though. Yeah. Because he said that was not cool, because they went against, what's his face? I just forgot the director's name.
Robert Weiss?
Yeah, they ran against his notes for that other 2001 directed film, or director's edition, and yeah, he was not happy about that. But anyway, Warachi says Babylon 5 writer J.M. Straczynski, yes, pitched Babylon 5 to Paramount a few years ago and was turned down when he got his show. Paramount launched DS9. Yeah, that was part of the whole.
That's one of the stories, but the people he pitched there weren't at Paramount anywhere near the time Deep Space Nine was developed. So how would they get that information?
Yeah. I don't know the whole ins and outs of it all, but I do remember. Yeah, that was a whole big deal at the time. Just make sure we get rid of the ones we've already read, so I don't read them. And then we've got let's see here. Ryan Benoit says, see the art behind James. I'm a huge fan of Motu. I'm looking forward to a live action movie. Hopefully a non-woke, done right, and true to the original pre-Film-ation mini comics that came with the figures.
Yeah, I don't like my take on He-Man is I like to pull from all the different aspects. So Film-ation cartoon is always the closest to my heart. But then you've got the first 4 mini comics, which the Don Glut written Savage Al Kala illustrated ones. But then there was 7 ones that followed, published, made by DC Comics, and those are fantastic. Just such written by I think Gary Conn and illustrated by Mark Texeira. I always get his name wrong. I'm terrible at surnames. But yeah, those mini comics were really good. I'd love to see a movie in that style. But as I always tell people, and it's at this point it's a ridiculously big if, a Masters of the Universe movie ever happens, it's not going to be what any of us want, because they're just going to make the movie and leave their mark on it. It's simple as that. And it's not me being cynical. It's just that's fact. That's what it's going to be.
About the status of the Netflix thing, the Netflix movie that was in the development.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know you're no real big part of it, but yeah, have you heard anything behind the scenes going on there?
No, nothing. Like I read over the years, I think I've read 3 scripts. I never read the script, which when I heard was actually, they were toying with this idea, pardon the pun, referring to He-Man, but
no,
they were toying with the idea of their idea for a He-Man movie was that Prince Adam was a man in New York, or living in a city, maybe it's New York, that had amnesia, and that at some point gains the power of Grayskull, and it was going to be a comedy. And it's like, well, if you're going to do that, why even call it He-Man? And it's like, oh, because you want the IP, of course, you want the recognition. But it's just it's so not hard to make a decent He-Man movie. The problem, I know one person, a friend of a friend, and this isn't like someone I barely know, this is someone I really know, a friend of a friend. He was approached to develop and work on a He-Man movie, and he said that he started coming up with ideas, and I think this is common knowledge, but Mattel just wanted their, kind of like the Disney Marvel thing. It's like, no, you're telling our story. And it's like, look, I've got all the knowledge here and I've accumulated this. You want me to tell us? No, you've got to tell our story. The first film has to be about Hero and King Grayskull. The second film has to be about, it's just like just make a He-Man movie for goodness sake. But they can't. It's like I remember my greatest fear was a few years ago. They were talking about that. They were going to do the Hasbro cinematic universe. And don't get me wrong, love Transformers the cartoon, G.I. Joe, Visionaries, Mask, love all those growing up. I do not want to see them in a shared universe on like a big Michael Bay explosion thing. It's just like, no, just
Barbie
just
versus
make
He-Man
movies.
doesn't appeal to you?
We were going to get Thundercats film a while back, weren't we? But yeah, I don't know, man. It's you know,
Have
I'd
you
love to
heard
see a
that's
He-Man
hit the
film.
skids or something? Because I thought that was being directed by gosh, who was it that was attached to that just not too long ago?
Oh yeah, you're
Thundercats.
right. Yeah, that was. But again, like I just don't know. You know, at one point we had a guy going on talk shows saying, "Yep, I've been cast. I'm going to be He-Man." And everybody's like, "Ooh, he's gone."
Yeah, that was that was the guy who ended up playing Atom Smasher.
Noah
Noah, yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Noah
Noah
Centineo.
He was,
Thank
you
God
know,
that
and that
didn't
was
happen.
like him doing like a promotion. Like I've heard some people speculate, like, I wonder if, you know, Mattel or someone were kind of casting him, but never actually intent on doing a movie, but just getting the He-Man, you know, brand out there. Or, you know, oh yeah, I'm going to be doing a He-Man movie, and someone watching, you know, Jimmy Kimmel or something goes, oh, He-Man, I remember that. Look it up, or I might buy a toy or something. That's very cynical, but it's just. I always say to people, I won't get excited for a He-Man movie until I see the first set photo. We actually see a set and people acting on that set or whatever. Not we've cast this guy, we've got a script, we've written this, we've got this director looking at a monitor. It's like, I don't care about any of that. Show me a set photo. Don't give me any dates, like, because I'm sure if you honestly look online and look at how many times a Masters of the Universe live action movie has been announced, you would, I mean, the first time ever I heard was 2005, and it was John Woo was announced to direct. 2005.
That was also going to be a disaster, by the way. There he was like an alien soldier that come across the power source. Channing Tatum.
It's just they just can't. I don't understand.
I know it's not that hard to do, really. I don't understand.
It's not like, yes, writing is, you know, you have to have some degree of talent to turn something from nothing into something, and a director and, you know, people and casting and costume making, etc. That makes a good movie when all those things come together. But they just seem to fail at the most basic of, you know, make a He-Man movie. Okay, so we're gonna just make a He-Man movie.
It's pretty simple. Andre and I think we said this the last time you were on here. All you do is hand somebody that DVD that you were part of the 2001 series and say, here you go, make the first 5 episodes into a movie.
Yeah, that's it.
Cast Alan Ritchson from Reacher as He-Man, big 6'5" blonde
big
guy,
dude. Yeah, but it's like they you know, they have to. I think the sad thing is, and I mean, it's common knowledge, but everyone thinks that they need to make the next MCU, not a movie. They need to make the next MCU, or we're going to make
the problem. Yes,
and it's always a huge problem. It's like, just make a He-Man movie. If it's successful, maybe look into, you know, other. No, we're gonna do a trilogy of movies. No, just tell one film. That's all we want, just one film. No, we're gonna do a trilogy of movies and a spin-off.
It's funny, James, you mentioned that, because I was just saying this the other day. Sorry to interrupt, but like, you're right. Because every single movie lately, that's the hang up, is it feels like it's just a big setup for something else. And horror movies used to do that shit a lot of times too. And for the first time in a while, I saw a horror movie that actually didn't do that, and I gave it praise because of that, and that was Megan. I'm like, they didn't actually go out of their way to set up a sequel. And I'm sure there's possibilities for a sequel.
Of course,
but they didn't go out of their damn way to make sure you were feeling like, oh, we're going to get a Megan 2. You know?
Yeah. Oh, watch out for the post-credits scene, you know.
Exactly. Like, there's no post-credit scene.
No. Credits roll, the end.
And and I know we're getting a Megan 2, but guess what? That was actually, you know, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but like, it was like, I'm like, oh my God, finally a movie that was just a movie and not a setup for a sequel.
No, they're making a sequel, I'm guessing, born out of the success or the reception to the first one. It's like, let's do a sequel. Like sequels used to be made. You know,
exactly.
We made that film and people liked it. Let's make another one. Not like, we've made that film, or what's coming next. It's just make, like I said, old man, I'm yelling at a cloud here, but just make a bloody movie. Make a He-Man movie. You know, I mean, I'd even argue that as awful as they are in my eyes, the Michael Bay Transformers film, that first film, if I recall correctly, was just a movie. I don't think there was
stands
any
alone pretty well. Yeah. In
I
fact,
don't
it
think there's any
stands alone
post-credits
so
like
well that they remade it 6 times, James.
They literally did, yeah.
I will admit, I mean, I checked out with, I think I watched the first one. The second one was like my last one, because as soon as I saw the transform with the dangling bollocks balls, I was just
what
like,
happened in the second one?
that was the second one. Yeah, devastated. It was devastated because I was like, oh, they're going to bring the Constructicons in. Oh, no, he's got a giant pair of testicles, because that's brilliant. And then I didn't see the third, fourth, fifth. And then I did see on like a streaming platform, I watched Bumblebee. And I did actually enjoy Bumblebee. I was like, oh, this feels like an
because
actual...
that goes against the grain a little bit.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like in your face. It's like, there's a story. I usually... not a fan of the, let's do a human-driven Transformer story. But that one, I thought, this works. I kind of like this. I like that it's somewhat set in the past, but, you know, without being too limited by that. And it's, I thought it told a good story. And then by all accounts, like the next one coming out is kind of a bit of a throwback to what we got with Michael Bay with the explosions and stuff. But, you know, we'll see. But, yeah, a He-Man movie, I would love, but you're not... No one's going to, not any fans, Savage Mini Comics, Film-ation, 2002, whatever. No one is going to get the version they want, because they're going to try and make their own definitive version. Yeah, and it's just like, just tell a bloody He-Man story, God, you know.
Yeah, and we did have one more that had to do with Star Trek. So sorry I missed this one earlier. My fanfic section 31 says Twilight Hope was created by ascended humans influenced by prophets to play the necessary evil. Well, you know, like like covert operation,
like the Pa Wraiths.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the villains against the prophets in Deep Space Nine.
And then Canon Faladero says, "Holy S script. Time Tracks is a deep cut." Yes, it was. It was so deep in my memory. I was like, "Holy crap! I forgot that existed." Is that like alternate universe stuff?
Had Mia Sarah in it too for the first few episodes, if I remember.
Oh my God.
Correctly. No, it had some named actors in there. It was weird. And what's really funny is that if I remember correctly, in the future that they come from, white people are the minority, and they're given a derogatory term.
Oh, that's right.
Wow,
now that you say that, I vaguely, now that you said that, I remember that. Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh wow. And then Ryan Benoit I believe this is off of He-Man, obviously. Also make a toy accurate power sword and costumes. Yes, the first 4 plus next 7 mini comics are the best. Villains were competent, lethal adversaries, not bumbling idiots. I could talk Motu all day, as we could too. And I'm sure we'll have James back on to talk Motu some more eventually. But I know we're gonna have you on 4K for You soon to talk about all your experiences and working behind the scenes on all the DVDs and other stuff you've done over the years.
I was going to say, I'd love to talk one day about my experience of working on the Real Ghostbusters DVD box set for Time Life, because that was just such an experience. I'm going to hopefully do a YouTube video about that at some point.
Well, we are going to ask you about that. That was kind of the main reason for having you on the show, is we wanted to talk about your experience of all that kind of stuff. And I noticed you've been posting some pictures of the Real Ghostbusters up converted to HD. So is there something going on with that?
Oh no, that was just me and a friend, like
just having fun.
Yeah, just having fun and just saying, like,
don't get my hopes up.
Yeah, sorry, because we did it and I was like, that looks really good. And then you try it with other scenes in other episodes, and it's like, it doesn't quite work as well. But,
I think the problem with Real Ghostbusters is that also comes from like a Video Master, as opposed to like one of the things I can see where the He-Man stuff, if you had to upconvert it, worked a little better because they actually did scan the film.
Yeah, no, Ghostbusters are all like, when we were, not to go on to a massive tangent, when we were putting together that set, myself and producer Andy Mangles were literally driving around Los Angeles, going from warehouse to warehouse, trying to, it's amazing, you know, who owns Ghostbusters, Time Life? Sony, of course. And it was just like, oh, we're going to put the series on DVD. Surely everything will be in one place. So we ended up like, we're driving from warehouse to warehouse going, right, yeah, we need that episode. Oh, this one's in Russian or whatever. You know, you try to find.
No wonder their version's even worse. Holy crap!
It was crazy trying to get it put together. I kept all the front end cards. You know, the I guess when they do the dubbing, not the transmission, but the actual like dubbing, some of these episodes that were on the season 1 disc were like dubs that had been created for goodness knows what reasons in the late 80s, early 90s. So it was we couldn't even find the originals. But I mean,
some
don't
kind
wrong,
of syndication or something.
Yeah, like syndication, and it's going out to here. We need a tape for this country. But it was fascinating to work on those. It was like I say,
can't wait to deep dive into that with you. But go ahead.
The true joy was like getting to meet everybody. But yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that at some point. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I know we're gonna reschedule that because you sadly had to had something come up Wednesday. But yeah, we'll definitely get back into that.
Yeah, definitely.
Soon. We got DS. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I might check out because it's I haven't had dinner yet and I'm quite hungry.
No problem. All right, well, we'll let you get out of here. DS Ford has been a member for 17 months. Thank you so much for that, DS Ford. And James, yes, I know we're going to reschedule again for 4K for you, and we definitely would love to have you back here on the morning show again sometime soon. Is there anything on your channel right now that you're working on or that you'd like to promote? I think the mods have been sharing your link in the chat this whole time. I believe it is, of course, in the description as well.
Yeah, like I'm just doing my usual weekly video essays or video or audio commentaries just about 1980s cartoons. I'm currently working on a deep dive of the Masters of the Universe comic published by Star Comics, which is a really fascinating read. It was like 13 issues. The first 8 were atrocious, like really bad. Then they got this writer in from issues 9 onwards who just told a few of the best stories ever, and then he went
shoot in quality at that time. Like those are like some of my favorite.
Amazing! Like it starts with the Hate Stones at issue 9, then it goes issue 10, 11, 12, and 13 of the Lifetime story, which in itself would make for a good He-Man movie, but that's another story for another time. But yeah, just working on constant content and just trying to celebrate 1980s cartoons as best I can. So if that's your thing, anybody who's watching, check out Serial Geek TV, and you'll see me with the exact same background, probably wearing the same shirt, talking about 80s cartoons.
Yeah, you got a lot of great videos on there, a lot of great
thanks, so.
Like uncovered trivia bits and other things about all your favorite shows and stuff from the 80s, and I think you have some 90s stuff on there too, don't you?
Oh yeah, it's one of those things like, I was in the 80s, you're exposed to cartoons from the 70s, right. And then obviously when you went into the 90s. So it's like, at some point I'm going to have to start looking at, I've got so much material for the 80s, but I want to talk about the 1967 Spider-Man cartoon, right. Not the meme of 2 characters pointing at one another, but the actual episode that is from, and like various other things, because I love the 1960s. Well, and
you kind of have a connection with Film-ation, and Film-ation, was huge throughout the 70s and stuff like that.
Oh, ridiculous. So, but there's so much good material. The Batman the Animated Series I'd like to talk about a lot, because that show, lots of great animation by Tokyo Movie Shinsha, all these great, not too far into the 90s, but a little bit into the 90s. But yeah, I thank you for subscribing.
Yeah, so if you're definitely into any of that kind of stuff, you guys will love his channel if you haven't checked it out yet. This guy knows his stuff.
Thank you. But yeah, thank you for having me on. It was lovely to chat with everyone. I look forward to, once I've checked out, I'll come back and listen later, because I want to hear more from the script doctor, the mystery man, as it were. But thank you for having me on. Really, really appreciate it. Honored to be part of this. And let me know when you want me on again. I'll be here.
Oh, of course. Anytime you're available, let us know. Otherwise, like I said, I just wanted to ask because it's been a while. We're like, we missed you. So good to see you again. Take care of yourself.
See you later, guys.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining. Take care.
Bye.
See you later. All right, let's get back into these super chats we had here. And then we got a couple more topics to get into. I'd rather get in some toppings right now, but that's all right.
Plenty of time for that later.
Want to talk about some stuff. I know that. Lost for Words says hail to the chat and hail to the Midnight's Edge in the Morning panel. Well, thank you so much, Lost for Words. Steon Mod Stud send us a super sticker. I don't know what it is offhand. Let me double check and see if the mod group did grab that. I know I want to thank Mr. Tickle Trunk and the other mods today for helping me so much with 6 being out today. It has been quite hair-raising, even though I don't have any hair to raise. And it is a thumbs up. So hit that thumbs up if you haven't already. We appreciate that here at the channel. Because, yes, you guys got a few more topics you want us to get to. We got Kitty Bear in the house who says, F Disney. I blame Disney for getting it Warm here. The D dumpster fire is heating up the whole world. Greta has to do something about Disney pollution. So according to him, the global crisis, if there is one, it has to do with the Disney dumpster fire getting too hot. That makes scientific sense.
It does. I mean, you can't argue with science.
It's science. Can't argue with the science.
The science is settled.
And speaking of Disney, Tripping Barnes says, please comment on the latest Disney buffoonery. Oh, well, we're about to do that. In fact, on that note, as we said before, Kathleen Morrison sent in this $5 super chat. It says, do you think the trick Disney pulled on Reedy Creek will ultimately be a good or bad PR move with public and investors? So this is a good question. Now, we've talked a little bit about this last night. Andre, I'm curious to hear your take on it, maybe Script's take on it, if you guys know anything about it. But basically, from my understanding, and I'm probably going to muck it up, is that Disney tried using basically some homeowners laws to try and get out of the Reedy Creek situation, and they got caught. And Florida is asking for they're asking for any and all evidence that would point to Disney basically trying to pull some shenanigans here. That's the best way I can put this. I'm sure you'll be able to put it more eloquently than I did. But
Yeah,
Andre,
I can try.
Yeah.
Script, you want to give an attempt first at summarizing exactly what Disney did to try to pull wool over Florida's eyes?
No, because I have no idea. I've been busy working on productions, and I don't even know what the heck Tom just said. So,
Okay, yeah,
yes,
that's
if you could
fine.
clarify that, that'd be very
please,
helpful.
it's very convoluted, and I don't have a Culture Casino, a Valiant, or a Mexican.
Because if they try to do something with, say, homeowners, wouldn't they then have to pay property taxes?
And look who shows up just in fucking time. Thank you so much. He's a
Perfect. I was about to
superhero
give,
indeed.
my layman's summary, but I don't have to now because now we're going to get a slightly more detailed summary from
The man,
Mike,
the myth, Mexican
Mexican
Iron
Welcome.
Man.
I heard a call for a tax accounting and finance Avenger. So
Yeah, I was sitting in the background hitting the button here, just going like, hear it, Mike, hear it.
I heard the Taco Bell signal resounded through the house, and when Bambino started barking, I knew that I was called upon to serve.
Thank you for being here.
This is a complicated legal shenanigans, but I'm going to try to simplify it. But you actually did a very good job in your you guys just in your remarks essentially captured
incoherent rambling.
Yeah. So let me basically what happened is that I'm gonna there's 3 to 5 things. I'll do it very tight and very quick. So one of the things that a lot of people commented on is that why is Disney sort of rolling over and letting this happen without much hullabaloo when this was a major thermonuclear issue for both sides back when? Well, it appears that what happened is that Disney's lawyers got to work and said, look, this law's passed, the clock is ticking. And what they did is that while DeSantis and the people that were pro no Reedy Creek and the new board that was being set up, the new tourism board was being set up for the state of Florida, the lawyers got to work and they essentially did what is known in corporate finance as a poison pill type of legal action. What they started doing is they started, while they still were, before the Reedy Creek board was out, what they started doing is they started executing agreements between Disney and the old Reedy Creek board so that when the new, quote, owners or the new board took over, they wouldn't be able to enact anything that had any real teeth or meat to it. It's analogous to the analogy that I'll give to you is that if any of our listeners from Midnight's Edge are homeowners and happen to live in homeowners associations or even apartments where you sign a renter's agreements and there's these, stipulations about what you can and can't do, or condo buildings where you can sell your condo, but then there's still things you can and cannot do, that there are legal agreements in place. And in this case, what Disney did is Disney had the Reedy Creek board members execute agreements as recently as early to mid-February that essentially let Disney still control things like density, usage of space, and through what are known widely as developer agreements. And developer agreements essentially are contracts that allow the holder of the developer agreement, which in this case is Disney, to be able to say, hey, it doesn't matter who the owner or governing board is, we still have a legal right to do whatever we want in terms of things like density, which matters for things like constructing amusement parks or preventing amusement parks, etc. So what happened is that the new board showed up, had a meeting, and at that meeting, the staff of the new board gave some bad news to the new board that, hey, we have all these agreements and we haven't even gone through a stack. It's kind of like walking into a house that you bought and finding out that you can't, say, for example, add a second floor. You can't install a pool. You can't
Get new drywall.
You can't do drywall. You can't even do it. You can't even add you can't even blow out. You can't even blow out like you can't build a mother-in-law's quarters or expand
No
your
dormers
garage.
on your attic.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Script.
No dormers on your attic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so there's many angles to this. One angle is that this is a bit embarrassing that while the state of Florida was claiming victory, they weren't keeping their eye on the ball on the transition. You know, they were so busy buying furniture to move in and getting things set up and meanwhile the seller or Reedy Creek board was busy making sure that they're like, all right, well, we can't change this law. This law's passed, but what we can do is use some ancient buried in laws in order to try to deal with what we really want. And to that end, there's two angles to it. One has to do, and this has been covered by Legal Mindset extensively on his channel, and has to do with whether or not there's a way to pierce this veil or pierce these agreements because they were done in bad faith. There's a variety of ways that they can be pierced and that they can
Which is probably why they're asking for, why they put they want evidence to
discovery.
This letter here.
Yeah, go ahead and go over that, Tom. Do you want to go over that?
It says, this email serves as public records request under Florida law. Please provide copies of all emails, text messages, and all other correspondence from or to employees, board members, or other affiliates of the Reedy Creek Improvement District regarding the following topics: documents discussing agreements, covenants, or similar documents approved or considered by the Board of Supervisors on February 8th, 2023. Please limit your search to documents discussing an intention or goal of circumventing, avoiding, frustrating, mitigating, or otherwise attempting to avoid the effects of the anticipated actions by the Florida governor and Florida legislator. If you believe that individuals no longer affiliated with Reedy Creek Improvement District may possess responsive public records that are not in your custody or control, please advise how the Attorney General's office may be of assistance. So
now, these types now, what Disney did, they're not supposed to be able to do, because these kind of binding covenants that endure and inure are not supposed to apply to governmental entities or governmental bodies. But they did it anyways. And in particular, one of the most comedic elements of all of this is that they quoted this law that was, the statute law that referenced, I can't remember which king it is.
King George III, I believe it was.
King George III and all of his descendants and heirs and all that goes along with it. So.
Some really weird Fugazi crap, if you ask me, but I didn't understand, and that's why I had such a hard time describing it. But sorry, go ahead, Mike.
So for those that thought that the story was over, oh yay, the drama continues. And what this highlights, Tom, going back to how this the reporting for Midnight's Edge and Legal Mindset, Valiant Renegade, and other channels, is that this Reedy Creek, this district, this area is a big deal to Disney. It is a big deal. And I can only imagine that related to Victoria Alonso being let go, I'm quite sure that someone on the legal team had one foot in the pot that was taking care of these private covenant developer agreements, as well as, hey, this bitch has got to go.
I imagine it's two completely different teams, but
yeah, they are, but it's all legal, but it's all connected, because it has to do with the fact that legally Disney is in a place where it's got to shore up its own financial interests, because this is not a company that's flush with cash. This is also not a company that can afford to let the special privileges that it had go by the wayside. I mean, the fact that they did this really accentuates the extent to which this was important. And they realized, hey, we've lost the political battle. Now let's go and do some legal maneuvering and legal shenanigans in order to try to keep what we want.
Yeah, and Petty Club brings up here that actually Charles III is the new king. Yeah, but what he means, I think, what you were saying, Mike, was that it's an old law.
Yeah.
They use like a really old law. And basically what they'd stated in it is that it's something to do with like 20 years after the death of Prince Charles and his
After the
descendants
death
or
of the
something like that.
last living descendant.
Yeah.
So basically, like the last living descendant right now is the king's grandchild. So assuming that that grandchild doesn't grow up to have any kids, then we are talking like 80 years from now or 100 years from now at the most optimistic from Florida's point of view, if this were to pass. That's the key word, because that ain't looking good now, is it, Mike?
Well, I think this is something that's obviously goes to court, and I think I'm no attorney. I don't play one on TV or in real life, but I have a hard time believing this thing's going to survive legal scrutiny.
Yeah. What I will say, though, because the original super chat that set us off to this asked about like PR victory. And what you have right here, Tom, of course, is the response from DeSantis. But if you look at the general corporate media, they're all basically cheering and dancing and hopping and
even Grace
celebrating
Randolph acted like it
already.
was a slam dunk. Yeah,
Exactly. And like, look at, for instance, CNBC's headline. Again, they're all acting gleefully as if this was a slam dunk and Disney really stuck it to the evil authoritarians in Florida. That is the PR victory for now. But I do not think that that is a PR victory that's going to last, because this thing right here, yeah, there's going to be a few battles in court over it, but this is going to be overturned faster than you can imagine where legal standards are concerned. Anything else would surprise me.
In the Disney shows that are out there, I was watching I just happened to be catching various Disney theme park type channels, and watching the comments on those by the Disney supporters was pretty funny. It's pretty. This is all pretty entertaining. But so the battle continues. Stay tuned, everyone.
Yeah, we'll see here on that news. So that's the Disney situation right now, at least on that front.
Did I do okay? Are there any other questions or things?
Thank you so much.
No,
if you're not busy, if you want to hang out just in case.
Oh yeah, I'll hang out. I just want to make sure I covered.
As of right now, I don't think there's anything else. The script had any questions. I don't think he cares though.
No, let Disney squirm and let Florida duke it out. I'm happy to sit back and watch.
Yeah, that's what I figured. You're kind of just like, yeah, okay. We'll see how this rolls. But yeah, but on the other front, Disney's dealing with a bit of a problem. You can call this a hell of a PR problem. And it's been brought up here a few times in the super chats. So let's jump to those. Wift sends in 11 Canadian bucks and says, Jonathan Majors' text from his girlfriend came out and it's not going as well as he probably thought it would. What's your guys' thoughts? Well, I don't know if you've been on Twitter at all, Wift, but yeah, a good friend of mine actually posted that like it was, speaking of slam dunks, and acting like that was some sort of slam dunk. And I'm like, I'm not so sure this says what you think it says after you read through it. Because from my interpretation of the texts, which are out there, we're not going to go reading through the whole thing because it's just like a page worth of text. Basically, but my interpretation of it was this, is that she just confirmed everything the original port said. The only thing she said that was nothing really was said that was we didn't already know. She just kept saying, you didn't attack me, or it wasn't an attack. She didn't say that they didn't fight. She didn't say that he didn't get physical. She didn't say that she lied in these texts. And in fact, as far as I was concerned, in my opinion, the last chunk of text sounded like something a lawyer would tell you to say. In fact,
it was interesting to see the change in wording and sentence structure and stuff like that. General syntax from one text to the other. It's like, whoa, his girlfriend really must have read up on legal matters before writing that second text. Tell you what.
I mean, really, all it did was, in my opinion, support the original report that came out, that she grabbed for his phone. They got physical. She went to the doctor because of her injuries. That's why the cops got involved. They were charges made because clearly they felt there was enough to go on. They keep claiming there's video and this other evidence, but yet all they've released is a statement saying this stuff and this set of text messages, which again, Mikey, what do you think about them?
I think that the selection of the text messages can't really be taken
That's another thing, yeah, you
comprehensively because we don't have context. These are selected text messages released by defense counsel with their client in order to achieve whatever PR and legal goals they have. We don't have, it's not like we have a transcript of all the text messages from moment A to moment Z that would provide important context in order to understand what these say, really. So,
yeah, and then the other part, I'm curious to hear about Andre's take on it, because he felt, at least the other day when we heard about the 911 call coming from him the night before, you felt that actually helped his case. I would argue now that what she put in this text doesn't help that now.
She completely undermined that.
Go ahead.
Undermined that because right now, like before, we were left with an impression that he was dealing with an Amber Heard that started a fight with him. After that text, it looks like we are still dealing with that, but we are now also dealing with he finished what that Amber Heard started. That's what it looks like right now, and that still puts him in the hot seat.
Well, and the 911 call didn't come from their altercation. That was what I was referring to. That was we were assuming. That's what we were assuming the day we heard about it, but now we hear that he called 911 because she collapsed and passed out. Which tells us that if we go by what the cab driver said, then that is true. What we were thinking the other night is that he, even though he was dropped off at a separate place, went back to their residence after the fact, which is probably where the harassment charges come in.
Definitely not suspicious.
Yeah. So again, this is not looking good for him. Again, innocent until proven guilty, but I don't think this text message helped much. Script, did you read up on this? I know you've been so busy with work. I doubt you even had a chance.
I only perused a little bit of it. The only thing that really shocked me, aside from the situation of the violence, is the fact that Jonathan Majors is 33 years old. I thought he was 40, 45, 48. He looks way older than he actually is. That's about it. I mean, what type of early 30-year-old man has that many forehead wrinkles?
Wow.
Seriously, like he looks a lot older than he actually is.
He really does. In fact, when he was playing the character that he played, what was the movie he just did that I watched?
Creed.
Before that,
Quantumania.
Dedication, Deliberation. What was it called?
Emancipation.
Emancipation?
No, the movie, the airplane movie, the Korean
plane.
War. Huh?
No,
the airplane movie.
Korean, the war. Wasn't he? Didn't he star in that? Wasn't that him?
Devotion.
Devotion.
Oh, okay.
I thought he looked too old. I thought he looked too old to play the part of a 22-year-old or 20-year-old fighter pilot.
Yeah.
He looked like a 42-year-old guy.
I guess they were pulling a 90210 and we didn't even know it. But Wartooth brings up basically what I was thinking. Like, Jonathan Majors needs to fire his lawyer. Yeah, because this is not looking good at this point.
Isn't this the same lawyer that said that they had video, but to this day
hasn't released it yet? That's what I've been saying. Where's the video?
Yes, I will say this for his lawyer, though, because the lawyer came out right away basically saying this is all bullshit. He's arrested purely on formality. There ain't nothing here, nothing to see. Move along. We even have a video proving that he is completely innocent, and that's in addition to 2 sworn statements and a redactment from the alleged victim. So basically, the lawyer made it sound like, well, again, like a slam dunk. And I understand why. Because the lawyer of Majors knows perfectly well that her job isn't just to get her client out of jail or to limit the sentence. It is to keep him in the MCU and to keep getting him millionaire paychecks. Now, that means that she needs to send the message right away to all potential Hollywood partners, any sponsors, anyone who's in talk with him right now in this moment, so that they don't pull out like the army guys did over that army ad. She needs to send the message powerfully, not to us, But to the sponsors, by way of the media, there ain't nothing to see here, so you just keep on your deals. Don't pull out. Just carry on as usual, because this will all be over before you know it.
Well,
that's why she did it. I don't think that she did anything wrong. Of course, it's going to look really, really bad if there is no such video. And that is where we are right now. But still, I don't fault the lawyer for doing that, because if she hadn't, they might have lost so many sponsor deals, which probably going to be lost now anyway.
Well, from an industry perspective, let me ask, well, all of you, your industry watchers, at what point does this case become a liability and they've got to move on?
It is already. And in fact, I disagree a little bit with Andre's assessment on this. The only thing I will say is, yes, she worded it correctly in her initial thing, but it should have came with that video, because that's the first thing everybody started questioning.
Yeah.
Okay, you say you have it,
existed,
but where is it? And then this is the first thing you drop, and this is why I agree with Wartooth here, is like, if this, and I actually thought about becoming a lawyer at one point. If I was a lawyer, I'd fire myself, because this is the worst fucking thing I could have released.
Yeah, if you
next to almost like a damning video. Right. Well, no, just this text message thing. Because to me, like, all it does is, like I said, support exactly what we heard from the first reports. And if anything, like I said, it doesn't have her saying I lied. It doesn't, say anything like that. It does confirm that there was an altercation. She says straight up, they know we fought. Meaning they knew that they got physical with each other. And again, we did give them the benefit of the doubt that she obviously started it, and they both probably got physical. But you're talking about the difference here between, a woman who weighs but $105 probably, and a big guy like him, right? So, like, I could see where he ended it, like you said too. And again, to me, this is just not looking good for him. And in fact, this is where I'll say this: I've been hearing rumors already, from a couple places, that they're already considering what their action is going to be with this situation at Disney.
Script, do you concur?
I don't know. All I know is that, yes, I agree that
I can understand him not wanting to comment. Sorry.
I definitely agree that the text messages do not help Mr. Majors at all. And that's as far as I really want to comment on this, because I think that this should go the full route of investigation so that if there is guilt, he can be tried fairly. And if there isn't, at least he'll face a fair trial and be exonerated. It's unfortunate, but you just have to rely on that aspect of the system, which unfortunately is not as transparent as we'd like it to be.
No, and I agree with Script in the sense that, innocent until proven guilty, especially in the time of Me Too. That's one of the main reasons why I'm, giving the guy a big shot at this. And I agree. Like, if I was his lawyer, though, that's the first thing I would have done, is just set out a little statement and not put out anything else, not made any more statements other than that, not made any magic promises. Because at the end of the day, I'm sure neither one of them look good on the tape, but the problem is nobody's going to give a shit about her unless it's a Johnny Depp situation. And if he turns around and puts his hands on her at any moment in that video, he is fucked. End of discussion. Doesn't matter, right? Like, because we live in this world where, rules for thee and not for me, especially when it comes for men and women arguing. And we all know this as men on the panel, I'm sure, right? Your woman can say and do a lot of shit, but the last thing you're ever supposed to do is put your fucking hands on her. End of discussion, right? Like, even if you got to leave first. And if it gets that bad, then you call the goddamn cops, right? Like, we've been taught that much.
Yeah, or even if she gets physical first, I mean, there's tolerance for that, not the other way around.
Leave
if you can.
If you can, leave. Right. I mean, if she's got a gun, then you got to defend yourself. I'm not saying that, but I mean, like, run.
but other than that, you defend yourself. You're the one who's screwed.
Yeah, I know. And that's what I'm trying to say here is in this case, and this is where, people have been joking about it, but him coming out of the closet as like bisexual or non-binary or something like that will help his case. It might actually in this situation. And I wouldn't be surprised if he does it. I don't know if it actually would help him much though. But,
well, in this case, I mean, just look over to DC, and you do have a they them who has turned out to be very difficult to get rid of, despite basically being a full-on cult
That's what I'm
leader
saying.
and
He doesn't
everything.
have that to back him up right now. That's a thing. And that's why I will give him the benefit of the doubt. And just like Maverick Christian says here, after Depp heard, I'm suspending judgment with Majors. And I'm not trying to be judgy either.
Yeah.
I'm just coming from the situation of this is the way it looks to the public. And this is what all that Disney gives a shit about. At the end of the day, they're not going to give a shit if he's innocent or guilty when this shit's happening in the public eye the way it is. The more the lawyer talks about it, the more the lawyer releases, the more people are seeing, the more they're talking about it still, the more it's trending. And at the end of the day, we're starting to get more and more reports about his behavior outside of this that was even talked about prior to that. So as Disney, I think they have to take that more into consideration right now than anything else, because this is a PR fucking nightmare right now. You have the guy who is set up to be your big bad lead in the Marvel universe for God knows how many years going forward here. And you have some of the worst shit possible happening right now outside of, you know, maybe killing somebody, right? Like, or diddling a kid or something. Cause like at this point, how do you get out of this? This is worse than the Johnny Depp situation. Cause the difference here is Johnny didn't get arrested for anything. You didn't have a bunch of people coming out of the woodwork going, oh yeah, Johnny did this and Johnny hit this person. I saw Johnny do that. No, to the contrary, you had everybody coming to his defense, right? And again, there you had two very famous people duking it out in a public eye. Here you have somebody who's basically somebody who's being protected already by the police. So nobody knows anything about her. All we know is that she lives with him. That's it. Right? So again, I'm trying to keep it an open mind here, knowing that she's clearly, you know, somebody who we don't know anything about. So I got to keep that in mind too. But from a PR standpoint, from Disney, from that questioning, I don't see any other choice other than either recasting or finding a way to move away from Kang.
They're going to want to wait until the courts make a decision. Yeah, but I agree. There's
Publicly,
two really bad things here. And that is one, there's an actual prosecution going on. And two, before even that, as you said, with Johnny Depp, the industry turned on him instantly. But that was the industry. Everyone who knew him came out in his defense. What happened with Majors? The opposite. I didn't see anyone coming out.
I was just going to say, here we have a clip of all the defenders right now.
And no one's defending him being a real 33-year-old. I still stand by the fact that he is lying about his age.
Thank you, Script, for getting us out of there.
This guy looks really old.
Oh, I was going to go there earlier, but I'm like, is that too racist to say? So never mind. Script said it anyway.
Yeah, well, this is
cancel me. I don't care. I just want to know if he really was born in 1990, because I don't think he was.
Maybe he really is Kang.
Script, are you saying that people in Hollywood might actually lie about their age and their height and things like that?
Not as egregious as Jonathan Majors, it appears. Like, I can understand a couple of years. Like, Tom Cruise doesn't lie about his age anymore or his height, but at least we know, yeah, he's definitely in his 60s. But Jonathan Majors, I'm like, yeah, I swear he looks like he's in his 40s. Just does. I could not believe that he would be of equal age to Michael B. Jordan in the Creed movie. That's one of the reasons, aside from lack of Sly, that I didn't watch it.
Well, that's what I always thought was dumb about the whole thing with making him an illegitimate child. It was like Michael B. Jordan is old enough to be one of his real kids.
Yeah.
Right? Like, why are you doing this? Like,
you could do a great angle, which is one of the reasons why Apollo didn't take the exhibition fight too seriously, is that he had sex with his wife the night before, which you're not supposed to do before a fight. And that was,
there you go,
Adonis's conception right then and there.
Well, as a result, he wasn't taking it that seriously anyway. So because of that, yeah, you're right. He made that mistake. And that could have been just something she mentioned that, yeah, you know, I was pregnant with him. It didn't even have to be that way. It could just been one of the other kids. He had young enough kids.
David's funeral. There you go.
Either way, yeah. Anyway, Wartooth also says Gunn said if Majors is fired, he'll cast him as Superman. Yeah, I'm sure he did.
You shouldn't even joke about stuff like that.
J.J. Abrams would go after him for Superman.
J.J. would probably, yeah. And then on the Disney Reedy Creek situation, Kitty Bear says Disney Greedy Creep deal is the best show on TNet. Is TNet still a thing? Or do you mean the internet?
I think the internet, yeah.
I think that's what he means, yeah. But anyhow, and then we got Doug 1985 who says, why is Disney acting like Mr. Burns and trying to get out of paying money for anything? They are kind of turning into Mr. Burns. Smithers, they're going to come and get us. Change the rules. I don't know if it'll work, sir. I don't care. Try it. It's a law. I remember it coming into effect when I was 12. That law is over 106 years old, sir. That was my Smithers and
Oh, that was pretty good. That was pretty good.
Yeah. Considering they're both done by the same guy's voice at the same time, yeah. The same person's doing the same voice.
Very sure, yeah.
Yeah. Playing against himself, which is funny. Most people don't realize that, yeah. Anyway, thank you again, Kathleen, for the original super chat to get us down this road. And then we got Glade Riven here who says, Hail Midnight's Edge in the morning. Twitter is being mean and not letting me send a pic of Tilly the Magic Roundabout I threw together. Can I send it another way? I'm sure you can email it to me, or if you have Facebook, you can find us on there. It's not letting you send it in a DM. Is that what it's about? I noticed that lately.
You got evicted from Twitter or something.
No, I think I know what it is. Ever since they've been messing with stuff, the type of pictures that Twitter will take are both, they've added some formats and some formats are wonky, right? So things I used to be able to send, I can't send anymore, and things I used to be able to send and they would come out through wonky or wouldn't go through at all are coming through just fine, like PNGs and stuff like that. So I think that's what has to do with it. I don't think it has to do anything other than that. So I'll throw my email in the chat there, though, so you can send it to me. And then Callum Lyle says, even though I'm glad I left Twitter, now I want to share sketches of Hordak to James probably next time. Yeah, you never know. I'm trying to think if he's a part of any of the Facebook groups, but I don't know if you do Facebook at all, but that might be a place to share it as well. But yeah. Well, Twitter, they're supposed to be sharing the algorithm today, I guess.
Yeah, they just went public with it a half hour ago.
Yep. So I don't know what that means, but they did it.
If only YouTube would be as honest.
Yeah. And then this is what also was in the topic of before. So we got this one right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure. Yep. All right. Just making sure we are getting the ones we got so we don't miss any. STR Red Wolf says movie chains would put animated movies into small theaters because they always thought animated for kids. Nothing learned from Spirited Away. Yeah, for the most part, sometimes this was the case. I think things have kind of changed more so in the last few years, or especially in the last few decades. But there was a time, I would imagine, that was a problem. And then DS Ford has been a member for 17 months. Thank you so much. And then we've got Ryan Bannon. Did we get this one?
Yep.
As I say, I thought we got this
yes,
one. Thank you
did.
again, Ryan. And then we've got Hyper Guy over 2 who says the Wrath of Dragon God and the Book of Vile Darkness movies are still better than this new Frankensteinian. Okay, you got to do that one, Andre.
Yeah, okay. The Wrath of the Dragon God and Book of Vile Darkness movies are still better than this Frankensteinian abomination.
Yes, and I think this is referring to the D&D one. I think we missed this earlier.
Yeah.
Or it came in a little after the fact. But yeah. And then let's see here. We have Jesus Davila, who gifted a membership. Thank you so much, Jesus. And then Chris Boltz asked a question. Why are there no good British Westerns? I don't know if British could understand.
They didn't have a Wild West.
Yeah, not only that, they weren't very popular then. Like we kind of didn't like them all so much then. I mean, well, we were getting out of that phase, but I'm sure.
Yeah.
But
there are some pretty decent Australian westerns then, because they did have a Wild West.
Yeah, spaghetti westerns, of course. Obviously.
There's Italian. There's French westerns. Yeah.
There's even one Norwegian western.
I'm curious what Clint Eastwood's up to next because he's reportedly working on his final film. Maybe it'll be a western. That would be something sweet. I always said it'd be nice.
Fistful of Vicodin. I don't know.
Yeah, no. Like a last good western from Clint. He doesn't have to necessarily even be in it per se.
Sequel to Paint Your Wagon? I don't know.
No, not that direction. Think more Unforgiven script, and you know what I mean.
Repented.
just the guy who reinvented westerns coming back for one last hoorah, basically. And then Marksman 117B asks, before I forget, Tom, how was Tetris? Well, I put up a quick minute review of the film, but I gotta say, enjoyed it quite a bit. Now, if you're familiar with the real story, you will notice, obviously, as Script will point out, they do take some liberties, obviously, and they do compress and some elements are kind of left out of it that you might think should be in there perhaps, but if not, it doesn't really matter because the story is pretty much told as it needs to be. It was thrilling. It's been the first movie since Once Upon a Time in Hollywood where I was pissed when the movie ended because I'm like, I want more. Don't end here. I want more. You know, like I would have loved for this to have been a series. Like this would have been amazing. Like in the way it's
like
put
a The
together.
Offer type of thing, right?
Yes, exactly. Like, but it just has a kinetic way of telling the story that you would never imagine. First of all, you would never imagine the story behind Tetris is this interesting.
Yeah,
Just the way
unless
they
you
tell it on
already
top
know
of
it.
it.
For
Yeah.
those that do not know,
ahead.
yeah, I was not surprised that it was good because I know the story behind Tetris already.
Yeah.
And basically, it's a Cold War era spy / business thriller. It's the material for Oscar level movies, or better yet, if
It's
you want
funny
to do
you
it
say
right,
that.
Emmy level series.
It's funny you say that because that's the first thing I was thinking of earlier. That is like, this is the kind of movie that used to win Oscars.
Yeah.
And when I was done watching this, that's how I felt. Like I've a few times in years, but not a lot like I used to. Like, I mean, I felt exhilarated after watching it. I watched just right before it, I watched All Quiet on the Western Front, which was also very engrossing. But this just kicked its ass, in my opinion. Like, because that was a very, stoic look at war at that time period, and it was very well done and all that kind of stuff. And I see why it got all the praise it did, but it was a bit drawn out. And this, though Tetris, it felt like there could have been more here. Like, and they really jump into the story because the main character doesn't really get involved in Tetris until it's already kind of been around for a while. So that's where they pick up with the Taron Egerton character and
his obsession with it.
yes, and I mean, they give you a really quick kind of just basic outline of where the game came from and all that kind of stuff, who invented it and the ins and outs of who owns it and stuff like that. And then they just get right into the whole deal because again, like if Andre said, if you're familiar with the true story, then it's going to be no surprise to you. They still found a way to do it because I also knew what really happened behind the scenes, and Gaming Historian did a great video about it years ago, and I'm sure, honestly, it partially was the inspiration to do this in the first place because it was such an interesting story. Yeah. And just the way they did it was perfect, spot on, tone perfect. It keeps you on the edge of your seat, and you could never imagine that a movie about Tetris would keep you on the edge of your seat, but it does. But the trailer did a great job of selling the movie in a way that doesn't give everything away either. That's what I loved, because like 90% of the trailer's in like the first few minutes of the movie. And there's a few bits and pieces here and there from the rest, but it's crafted. Those trailers were crafted so well to sell this movie and not only deliver on what it promises, but give it to you in a way that you didn't necessarily expect from the trailer either. Because I had a certain expectation going into this movie, knowing the story, seeing the trailer, and then when I saw the movie, I'm like, whoa, wait, you're starting there? Okay. And you just get rolling into the movie. And again, I can't recommend it enough. I think most people will enjoy it. Even if you're not a big biopic kind of person, just like you said, Andre, it has all those little elements to it when you get into it, and just the craziness when he gets to Russia, right? And the Game of Thrones bullshit going on behind the scenes with all these game developers and game licensors and shit is astounding. And when you find out how true most of it is, now again, like I said, some of it is very exaggerated. Certain elements are exaggerated. I'm sure the climax didn't happen exactly the way it does in the movie. Because as far as I know, I don't think the head, for instance, of the one game company actually made his way to Russia. I don't think he actually went there. Like, they actually have him go there in the movie, which is similar to like where Script mentioned earlier, the Offer. Most of that shit happened. It just didn't happen necessarily that way or that exaggerated. And like, so it's just kind of like that, basically. It's a mostly true story. And even if it's not all true, it should have been, kind of thing. So yeah, I hope people see it and I hope they enjoy it. I can't wait to hear your feedback.
On Tetris.
Please.
That is the mandatory question that everyone, apart from people who are fully on board with the agenda, now asks before any movie. Was there any wokeness in it?
if there was, it didn't matter because you could just chalk it up to just being natural of the time because it takes place in 1988, 89. There was one bit that I didn't really notice until later on, and this is probably where they got away with their, what do you call it? They checked their boxes. Quota? Yeah, thank you. They got away with their quota. Yeah.
Because these days you have quotas, and you may have to rewrite some history in order to satisfy those quotas.
Now, I don't know if this is necessarily that so much, Andre, because, again, there's a lot compressed in that first part of the movie. Like, there's other people and companies that are completely left out of this story for obvious reasons because you just don't have 10 years to tell it. There was one individual who in real life, when the guy who actually showed the original Tetris game to Hank, the lead character, the real life guy was white. In this movie, it's played by a black person. They don't say his name, though. And they're not entirely clear where, and that's the other thing is there's 2 or 3 other companies that are involved that don't even get mentioned in the movie. So it might be a product of that or the quota, one or the other. But it's one scene, one toss away scene. Other than that, I mean, you already have the guy who he lives in Japan already. His wife is Japanese, so you already have a multiracial couple there. This is just what reality was at the time. And once you get to Russia, everybody's white anyway. So like, I can understand maybe why they did that, just because other than that scene, there really isn't a whole lot of diversity outside of Japanese and white people. So and Russians. So it's like, yeah, I mean, it does not do any of the bullshit to really go out of its way to be woke at any time. No. And in fact, if anything, Taron Egerton is, you know, his whole goal and the whole thing about his character in the film, not to give too much away, just like in real life, was he just did it more so because of the love of the game. And when he met the guy who made the game, he fell in love with him, not like romantically, but they seem to be like just intellectual equals. And I don't know if it really happened or not, but like in the movie, it's Taron Egerton's character's idea to make it from, because the original game only has one line that disappears when you do the thing. It was his idea to make it multiple lines.
If you complete multiple lines, all of them disappear, yeah.
Yes. And I would imagine that's true because these guys seemingly worked with the movie and they're still partners in the Tetris company. Like, not to go too far into the future, but like, so again, it's, the movie's more or less hovered around the espionage story, and then it's counterbalanced with the story of the friendship of these two guys. And then you got all the craziness of Russia going on in the background. Sometimes to funny things, sometimes it gets freaky. Like you're starting to wonder if somebody's going to get killed, right? Like, you know, and it's very well done, very well paced. I can't say enough good things about it. Any other questions, please go ahead. I just don't want to spoil anything for those who may not know the whole story. So yeah. No, ask Matt.
Yeah. I think that's an excellent review, and I look forward to checking out the movie myself.
Yep. And then afterwards, I suggest checking out the Gaming Historians video for more more of a perspective on it.
Absolutely.
But we got this
for the real story, which is every bit as compelling as any movie.
It is, yeah. Which is funny because when you watch that historian video, you'll realize, holy shit, half of the video, it's half of his video before we actually get to where the movie starts.
Yeah. Yeah, because otherwise you'd be dealing with a mini series and not a movie.
I wish they had, but yes.
I wish that too. That would have been better, actually. I mean, this should have gotten the Chernobyl treatment.
That's what I was thinking. Is like Script said, like the offer like a mini series or a Chernobyl, same thing. I'm sure to where, you know, it's definitely not going to have multiple seasons, but it's just one story being told over multiple chapters. But yeah, but the way they did it, I thought was so well. So I can't say enough good things about it. I hope everybody gets a chance to check it out. It is on Apple Plus. So I know that's not something everybody has yet, but yeah. And I'm not going to shill for Apple Plus. So whatever means you have to do, you do. But if you do have to use those means, use Surfshark.
Yeah, exactly. Surfshark is a proud sponsor of our channel. Though we, of course, neither we nor they condone that you use it for piracy. But we can't stop you if you do. So, yeah.
Yes, and I'm surprised they didn't release this in theaters because they're releasing the Air movie in theaters, which is another one I think they produced with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, which is looks very similar to this actually, like in the tone and the way it's being told. So it's about the Air Jordan shoes. I don't know if you see the trailer, but yeah. Seth has become a member. Thank you so very much. We appreciate that. We are going to be doing a member stream soon, are we not, Andre?
We are very, very soon. I do not have the date exact yet, but it's going to be inside of the next week.
Okay. Well, probably not this weekend then, so hopefully within the next week.
Yeah.
All right. And then Duroan sends us €2 with a heart. Thank you so much. Kitty Bear says, how sure are we that it's a real she? Which one?
Major's girlfriend or whatever?
Oh, yeah, I have no idea on that part. If that's what he's referring to. Or his lawyer?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah, well, these days you can never be too certain, I
You
guess.
can never tell. Nelson Sharita says, Andre, I have a question. What is best in life?
Well, last I checked, it was still to crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentation of their women. Unless, of course, you're Jonathan Majors, then maybe you would find some priorities.
That was a really bad joke. Yeah.
Well, Disney's in major trouble, so what can you do?
Yeah. And then we got Accident Seller who says, Tetris, a story about a man who grew up wishing he could fill the gap one piece at a time. He discovers that even when the pieces fit, there are no holes, for he is a nerd. No, surprisingly was a very, very entertaining and excellent film. Lily von Stoop is in the house and says, have you seen the trailer for Sisu? It looks okay. Yes. I think we all here on the panel have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll be seeing it next week, actually. So I look forward to reporting on it then.
Oh, and we can't wait to hear your thoughts on it. Oh, thoughts on Sisu film. Trailer looked awesome. Yes, looks excellent. Looks like kind of like in the vein of John Wick set in the war kind of thing. And yeah.
Yeah.
I can dig it.
Yeah, Finnish action. That's not going to be woke at all. So I look forward to it.
And Uncle Remus is reaming us over the Conan 4K disc. It's coming, I've heard. In fact, we've heard a few more rumblings that it's going to be coming.
If it were up to me, it would have come out years ago. So let's just hope that they freaking do it right.
Here's the thing, guys, and this is if anybody who tunes into 4K for you already knows this, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating ground for those, but for those who are not an avid viewer of that, it takes a long time sometimes to put these special editions together. A long time. Like we just learned, we had Robert Meyer Burnett talking about the process, you know, and he worked a lot through like the studios and stuff. A lot of these boutique companies, they take their sweet time because they can, and they try to do their best job usually. And when it comes to doing the scan, that takes a long time. When it comes to gathering all the special features and stuff like that, that can take a long time. Sometimes you can just be waiting to talk to Arnold Schwarzenegger during COVID or something like that, which could very well be the case. Or you're waiting for a documentary that's being edited as we speak or something like that. You never know. We can hope and fingers crossed. I'm not saying I know anything or don't know anything. I'm just saying that these things factor in. And frankly, it's just sometimes they wait for just an anniversary too.
And sometimes they miss that anniversary. That also happens a little bit more often than.
But like a good example is recently. I keep forgetting their name, but I shouldn't. What's the name of that company? The German one.
Which one of them?
Turbine.
Turbine. Yeah.
I always want to say something airplane. I'm like, no, it's Turbine because the airplane is their little.
Which they have in airplanes.
Yes, and that's why I always do that. Their version of Frighteners came out this last year here, but they have exclusive rights on it till the year 2026, which is ironically the year of the anniversary, which is probably when Universal will release it here in the US. So there you go. That's happened sometimes too. This unfortunately is just a title that hasn't been released anywhere else yet, so I'm thinking they're still working on it. That's why. So yeah. And then we've got one more, Daniel, who says, I drank vodka with Alexei once, had no idea who he was. Really? When he told my friends and he made Tetris, we thought he was full of it. Wow. No shit, huh? That's cool.
Oh, that's an awesome story. I
Yeah.
wonder how did you find out that it really was him? Like, did you check out the story, or
His
were like,
picture or something.
"Who
Yeah.
that guy?" And then you Googled it the day afterwards.
Yeah, let us know in the chat. But while we're waiting for that response, Script Doctor, do you have anything coming up you'd like to plug or anything going on? Because we are caught up, my friends.
Other than yesterday, I dropped the pilot review for Taylor Sheridan's latest television show called Landman with Billy Bob Thornton. That's going to be coming out next year. So if you're a Patreon member at the premium tier, I believe you're able to check that review out and give that current draft a little read. And it's quite interesting and a lot of fun. Over the weekend, I'm going to drop the episode 7 of Picard season 3 review, and then I'm going to look at some other scripts that are on what's called the Industry Circuit's blacklist, which are screenplays that have not been produced, which are being shopped around by management teams to try and get funding. And I'm going to review a couple of those over the course of April.
All right. And Rip Star Trek thinks we might have missed his last 2 super chats, Andre.
Yes, I have them right here. For 14 South African rounds, he said, "We seen Star Trek 90210. It's called 2009," which is a good point. And he also said, for 35 South African rounds, "I don't get it. People wanted to fix it. They had a plan. Taylor Sheridan is making Paramount Plus viable, and then they pull this crap." And yeah, that's a very, very good point right there. And another one that we missed in between is Mecha J, who said for $5, "Academy is probably going to be CW drama meets Star Trek." And yeah, you're all right. They are they're really messing this up. I don't know how they. Well, I can see how they look at studio politics matters and they don't look at the real world. Because if they looked at the real world, they would never do this.
There you go. So sorry we missed those. That was my fault because I don't have 6 today. But thank you so much to Mr. Tickle Trunk, who's really stepped up to help me out today, along with the other mods. If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't have been able to do this. Eric has also become a member. Thank you so much for that. And then I'm double checking here to make sure we didn't miss anything else. We got Seth as a new member, and that was the last thing, and Eric, and then we're good to go. Thank you so much, guys. We appreciate it. Mikey, is there anything you want to plug since you're the biggest YouTuber on here?
I am not a YouTuber. I am merely.
Oh, you didn't even look at your label and you didn't even say, "Oh, sweet."
Oh, you stop changing my thingy.
But
Oh
now
wait,
it's a
it says
good
Matt.
one.
Oh, it's I like that. Math and tax law superhero. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. I'll be on Loki's Mornings and Missteps tonight with Tom
Yes.
and anybody else that shows up. That's 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Central.
Yes.
And thanks for having me on.
Yes,
Well, I guess I
indeed.
kind of invited myself, but you know.
Yeah, well, you're always
No,
welcome.
we're
So we're glad that
Are
you
you
did.
kidding me? This place wouldn't be able to run without you.
Oh, you're too kind. Not a YouTuber though.
Script is like my security blanket. 6 keeps me up to speed on everything and keeps everything running behind the scenes. And yeah, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be able to do all the other business stuff and all that business.
Well, thanks. You're sweet. Thanks everybody in the chat for being here for the show. Thanks to all 1,000+ of you that stuck it out, and see you Monday.
And
Yeah.
Waltman is curious if we read his from this morning. I know we got at least
I believe that we
one,
did, but I
double
will
check.
double check just to play it safe because we never leave a super chat behind.
I do
and if
remember
we do,
reading
we
one
hate
at least
having to
from
come
you.
back for them. So
I do
let's
remember
see
at least
here.
reading one from Waltman, but I don't know about it. One
Yeah,
maybe from before the
I'm
show.
going through finding like the oldest ones here, going through everything. Waltman 4. The Waltman 4 said Canada's C11 bill and America's restrict bill. What the Christ almighty heck in a 4th of July's hot sun is wrong with us?
Yeah, I don't remember that
do
one.
not think we did get this one. I
That's a
think
good
we
one.
did miss that one.
Too bad Paul wasn't here still, but yeah, Script, you're the only Canadian.
Well, it's something I mentioned earlier on another stream a few days ago, is that there's a parallel between our that bill in Canada and the one that's currently going down in the United States with regards to TikTok. They're going to try and usurp the rights that certain people have over the internet. under the guise of security and safety for other.
It's already being called the Patriot Act 2.0.
Yeah, it's actually more egregious than that, but yes, pretty much. And we have the same thing up in Canada, and it's the mere fact that these two governments are in sync on this is really disturbing, because it shows that there's no real opposition to in politics right now to fight against this, or at least refine these bills so that they don't give the government that much power over individual people and their privacy.
Yeah, this is a bunch of bullshit where they're burying crap into this TikTok bill where it's a real Trojan horse, basically. Because on the surface, yeah, TikTok's a bad thing. Even if it had nothing to do with the Chinese, I think it should be obliterated from the face of the earth. It's part of the problem with kids.
It should go the way of Vine.
Yes, but buried in this bill is a bunch of other shit, like Scripps saying, that's even worse than the Patriot Act, and I agree. Like, this is going to be something that I think is going to be a hotter topic for us YouTubers in the next few weeks here, but it's not going to be something that's so interesting for you guys, so it'll be probably a lot more behind the scenes discussions on it. But yeah, it's kind of scary for us in a weird way, but yeah, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Yeah, it is scary. It's very scary, and especially that there's no real resistance to it. Certainly not that matters. Yeah, you have the people who are informed who are opposed to it, but the politicians who are supposed, in theory, to serve the people don't have to abide by that.
Yep. And basically, like I said, it's a Trojan horse. It's buried underneath something that most people can agree with outside of kids who can't vote anyway. So, yeah, we'll have to see how this rolls, kids. But with that, I want to thank James for coming in here today. It's always fun to get to pick his brain and hear what he's got to say about current events, and always get to hear about all his previous work. And also Paul, of course, for always hanging out with us. We love him, even though he's going to leave us when he gets 100,000 subscribers. Gonzalo Bergali says, TikTok was the first step towards idiocracy. I agree. It definitely, if it wasn't the first step, it definitely fast-tracked it. That's for sure. I don't know if anybody could argue with that. But in that, we'll leave you today and say thank you so much. Usually Fridays we go a little shorter, but you guys stretched us out way long today because we had a lot of news to talk about. So hopefully we covered it all good enough for you guys, and we will see you soon.
Well, before that, Dash Attack also claims that we missed a $5 super chat from him. So going back to check.
We got a few from him, so I'm not sure on that one.
Well, he says for $5. Well, he said Dash Attack. He said for $4.99. Resending. Paramount must make a performance check of 15 to break even on 20 critical success. Sequels get made. We did get that one. So
two versions of that, actually.
Two versions of it, yeah.
Yeah. So then I am checking if there's another more recent one from Dash Attack. I'm gonna reload, so I'm sure I don't miss anything. Yeah, this is why we need 6 here.
She'd be like, no, you got them all, or no, you missed this one. Oh, he says he must have missed it. That was it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, because I don't see anyone, any other.
We got to it twice, actually.
We got that one, and we got it twice even.
Yep. So, good thing we got it, though. Better safe than sorry. And with that,
it is time for some koalas in the rain.
Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given. Koalas in the rain.